Chapter 1970. The Cultivation of a Six-Star King. Seems like you broke through again. Previously, I received news that you were only a 5-star king. I didn't expect you to break through in such a short time. Brat, you are truly amazing. However, you are still nothing in front of me. I advise you to obediently sever your own arms and cripple your own cultivation. Then kneel before me and follow me back to the All Beginnings Holy Land. When I'm in a good mood, I can leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, you should know what will happen to you. Ridiculous. Lin Xian coldly snorted. Are you done speaking? If you are, you can scram. Brat, you are truly seeking death. I don't believe that such a powerful spirit boat can be used without limit. After saying this, the black-robed man coldly snorted. His body emitted a powerful aura. Strong winds swept through the surroundings, causing his black robes to flutter loudly. The cloak covering his head was also blown away, revealing a handsome and young face. Upon seeing the other party's appearance, Lin Xian was somewhat surprised. This person was younger than he had imagined. The other party seemed to be in his 30s. However, Lin Xian knew that this person couldn't possibly be that young. After all, he had never seen a 30-year-old almighty before. Are you surprised? Let me tell you, I am 142 years old this year. I am the youngest almighty of the 5th bloodline. When I was your age, I was one of the candidates of the All Beginnings Holy Land. Now, I have already become an almighty. In terms of talent, I don't lose to you. In terms of strength, you are inferior to me. What qualifications do you think you have to be arrogant in front of me? The black-robed man said coldly. That's why I said, Brat, you'd better surrender obediently. The youngest almighty? Lin Xian's lips curled up. He hadn't expected that the black-robed man in front of him would also be a genius. Moreover, he was a candidate of the previous generation. If that was the case, things would become even more interesting. In the next instant, he moved his body. Crackling sounds came from his body. Lin Xian indifferently said, I just broke through and needed an opponent. I didn't expect that you would take the initiative to deliver yourself to me. Since that's the case, I will accept you. Remember my name. My name is Shangguanqi. I will be your nightmare for the rest of your life. Then, a golden radiance appeared on his body and spread out in all directions. Buzz buzz buzz. In the blink of an eye, the golden light enveloped a radius of 1,000 miles, forming a huge energy shield that enveloped the entire space. Shangguanqi, on the other hand, was floating in the void. His robe fluttered and his handsome face shone brightly. I've already used my domain to seal this space. You can fight to your heart's content. You don't have to worry about disturbing the other monster kings. I'll give you a chance. I'll let you make 3 moves. After 3 moves, I'll make my move. Shangguanqi said calmly. I hope you can grasp this opportunity. Within these 3 moves, use your strongest move because once these 3 moves pass, you won't have any power to fight back. Hearing this, Lin Xian snorted coldly. This guy was really confident. However, Shangguanqi did have the right to be confident. The other party was a mighty figure and he was only a little over 100 years old. A mighty figure at this age could be said to be a peerless genius. Unfortunately, he met Lin Xian. Giving me 3 moves? Good. Since you're so courteous, I'll accept it. Lin Xian sneered. Then, the light in his eyes became brighter and a sharp aura exuded from his body. A pitch-black demon sword appeared in his hand. It seemed to be made of black jade and there were mysterious demon runes on it. Buzz. In the next instant, Lin Xian made his move. A sword radiance shot up into the sky. Lin Xian pulled out the 9 darkness demon sword and slashed down like a rainbow. Boom. Just as the sword was about to land, a dragon's roar was heard. Then the sword chi was covered with dragon scales. It looked like a huge dragon that appeared in the sky. Seeing this, Shangguanqi frowned. This was because he realized that the sword chi's aura was too powerful. It was not much different from the power of an almighty being. This change made Shangguanqi's face change. He didn't expect the other party to be so powerful. Boom. He was struck by the lightning and was sent flying. Wherever it passed, the void would quickly shatter. Brat, you're courting death. Shangguanqi spat out a mouthful of blood. His handsome face became extremely ferocious. His deep eyes were red and filled with strong murderous intent. Lin Xian, on the other hand, laughed coldly. The youngest almighty? The successor of the previous generation? How awe-inspiring. But why can't you even block one of my attacks? Alright, you said you'd give me 3 moves. This is only the first move. There are 2 more moves left. I hope you won't fight back. Hearing this, Shangguanqi was so angry that he vomited blood. He roared crazily. Brat, you're courting death. You've successfully angered me. I take back what I said. but I've decided that I'll make you beg for death. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, Shang Guanqi moved. Violent energy surged out of his body. He turned into a bolt of lightning and charged towards Lin Xian. He threw out a punch. His fist was glowing. The void trembled. The golden light on Shang Guanqi's body was like a golden flame that lit up the entire sky. Boom. The terrifying fist blasted towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian snorted and slashed out with the 9 darkness demonic sword. The black sword light seemed to have rushed out from hell. It carried a cold aura and violent power. In the next moment it collided with the golden fist. The collision of the two caused an earth-shattering sound. The surrounding forests and mountains were instantly sent flying. Nothing could stop the aftermath of the explosion. Shang Guanqi's face darkened because he realized that his fist had been blocked by Lin Xian's sword. This made him even more surprised. If he had been careless and allowed Lin Xian to sneak attack him, he had used all his strength now. However, Lin Xian was still able to block his fist. This really surprised him. Shang Guanqi snorted. His body shone with golden light. Then his body enlarged and turned into a giant. Not only that, golden light condensed on both sides of his body, forming 3 heads and 6 arms. This was a magical divine power. Legend had it that in ancient times, there was a golden divine ape that had 3 heads and 6 arms. That kind of divine power was extremely terrifying. Lin Xian did not expect Shang Guanqi to have such a divine power. He had to admit that Shang Guanqi was the successor of the previous generation. He had become a mighty figure at the age of 100. He definitely had the right to be proud. This kind of power was still terrifying. Even those mighty figures who had lived for thousands of years might not be able to unleash such power. Shang Guanqi unleashed his 3 heads and 6 arms. His 6 palms quickly formed a whirlpool and pressed down on Lin Xian. The void cracked in an instant. This kind of divine power attack was too shocking. Chapter 1971. If he was not careful, he might be killed by the golden vortex. However, Lin Xian was not afraid. Facing the 6 vortexes and the terrifying 3 heads and 6 arms, he snorted coldly. Light flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, countless sword runes spread out in all directions. A huge sword array was quickly formed. The sword array was blood red and it had a strong murderous aura as soon as it appeared. It was as if a sea of blood had appeared. The pungent smell of blood made Shang Guanqi frown. Demon-slaying sword array kill. Lin Xian snorted coldly as the blood-red sword aura flashed. Then a terrifying blood-red sword aura shot up into the sky and slashed forward. Boom boom boom. The 6 huge golden vortexes were blocked and hit by the blood-red sword aura. Some of them flew backward and some were split open. This is the demon-slaying sword array. You have cultivated the demon-slaying sword array. Shang Guanqi's face changed when he saw the blood-red sword array. Obviously he had heard of the demon-slaying sword array. However, he knew that it was difficult to cultivate the demon-slaying sword array. Even the members of the 5th bloodline who possessed such a formation were unable to use it. However, he did not expect Lin Xian to have mastered it. It was unbelievable. Lin Xian must have gotten the array from the 5th line. However, it had only been slightly more than a month and Lin Xian had already mastered it. Lin Xian's incredible speed was unbelievable. Impossible. Damn it. That's impossible. Shang Guanqi roared crazily. However, he soon calmed down. He was also a peerless genius. He knew that even if Lin Xian had mastered the demon-slaying sword array, he had not cultivated it for long. Lin Xian did not have many monster souls and could not unleash the true power of the demon-slaying sword array. And this was also his chance. Therefore Shang Guanqi sneered. Kid, I don't know how you managed to cultivate it, but do you think you can defeat me with this newly formed array? You are too naive. I have cultivated the 3-head 6-arm superpower for more than 100 years. It is not something that your newly formed demon-slaying sword array can defend against. So, go to hell. Shang Guanqi sneered and threw out a punch. Suddenly, the terrifying golden fist was like a huge golden mountain rushing out quickly. This display was too powerful. It was not just one fist but 6 fists roaring in the air. It was as if 6 peerless golden flood dragons were stirring the void. Lin Xian's expression was solemn as well. He had to admit that his opponent was indeed powerful. This 3-head 6-arms mystique made him feel rather troubled. If it were an ordinary King Realm expert, they might not be able to do anything to him. However, Lin Xian was different. Not only did he have the demon-slaying sword array, but he also had the great dragon sword soul. Even though he had just started cultivating the demon-slaying sword formation and was unable to unleash its full power, he still had the great dragon sword soul. The powerful might of the great dragon sword soul was enough to make up for all the deficiencies. In the next moment, the great dragon sword soul within Lin Xian's body began to circulate, and the demon-slaying sword formation beneath his feet began to vibrate violently. Then a ray of sword chi rushed out and turned into a blood dragon, roaring. Boom. With a roar, the entire void shook violently, as if it was going to pierce through the entire sky. The peerless sword chi turned into a true dragon, waving its tail in the air and directly contending against the 6 golden fists. An intense collision sounded. The void was torn apart and large cracks appeared one after another. It was unknown just how many li they extended. What? How could his sword chi be so powerful? Shangguan Qi frowned again. According to his speculation, the demon-slaying sword formation should not have been so powerful when it was first formed. However, how could his opponent block his 6 fists with just one ray of sword chi? This level of sword chi was too terrifying. Kill. Shangguan Qi roared, and the golden light on his body turned into balls of golden flames, burning fiercely. The 6 fists looked as if they were casting gold, and mysterious runes appeared on them. Incomparably violent energy was being waved around rapidly. In an instant the void was shattered. The golden flames were like a divine furnace, releasing a terrifying temperature. At this moment Shangguan Qi was too powerful. He was like a golden god of war, unstoppable. Buzz. Lin Xian activated the demon-slaying sword formation, and immediately rays of sword chi rushed out like a huge blood dragon, dancing rapidly. However, that was not all. Another ray of crimson sword chi shot up to the sky, and it turned into a crimson-white tiger. It roared ferociously, and its murderous aura was like that of a god of death. The blood-red tiger let out a roar and charged toward Shangguan Qi. Get lost. Seeing this, Shangguan Qi roared. He waved his 6 arms and his 3 heads emitted a dazzling radiance. Instantly, the crimson-white tiger was torn apart. Boom. However, as soon as his attack landed, another huge crimson-black tortoise shot up to the sky. Its huge body was like a huge pot lid covering the entire sky. As the tortoise fell, the surrounding mountains collapsed, unable to withstand its power. Clang, clang, clang. Shangguan Qi felt an immense pressure. The crimson-black tortoise above him was like a real divine beast, and it weighed billions of pounds, causing him to feel pain all over his body. Even the golden flames on her body had dimmed. Damn it! What kind of superpower is this? Shangguan Qi roared crazily, and his face was filled with shock. This was because he realized that this was different from the demon-slaying sword formation that he knew. Boom. The huge crimson-black tortoise came crashing down. Even though Shangguan Qi was extremely powerful, he was still sent flying. He landed 3,000 meters below the ground. Frightening cracks spread in all directions as the golden flames on his body dimmed. In fact, cracks had even appeared on his golden body. From this, one could imagine how frightening that attack earlier was. Kid, I'm going to kill you. Shangguan Qi roared and charged up from 3,000 meters below the ground. His body was covered in gold as if he was indestructible. However, if one looked closely, they would see that there were many cracks on his golden body. It was like broken porcelain which was caused by Lin Xian's sword chi. Kill me? You won't have the chance. Lin Xian snorted. I now have the strength to kill a mighty. You're no match for me. He was very confident and he waved his arm. Suddenly, the demon-slaying sword formation shone brightly again. Every sword chi was like a comet, shining brightly. It caused the surrounding space to crack. The entire demon-slaying sword formation carried tens of thousands of sword chi, and it was a few thousand meters long, completely drowning Shangguan Qi. Boom, boom, boom. Continuous explosions were heard, and terrifying energy roared. Fortunately, before this, the space was still sealed by Shangguan Qi. Otherwise, such a terrifying attack would definitely attract the powerful monster kings around. But now the threat was eliminated. When the tens of thousands of sword chi disappeared, Shangguan Qi fell to the ground, dying. Chapter 1972. He didn't expect Xian Qi to be so powerful that even he couldn't compete with him. But how was that possible? He was a mighty one, the youngest mighty one. He had the potential to become a peerless almighty. He might even become a sage in the future. But now, a young man in his 20s with the cultivation of a 6-star king had defeated him. He couldn't accept it. Perhaps even the current saint of all beginnings couldn't do this. But Xian Qi did it. What realm had the red-robed young man reached? What kind of heaven-defying existence was he? Shangguan Qi didn't dare to imagine. He wanted to report the news to the sect because if such an enemy grew up, it would definitely be a disaster. But he had no more hope. Another sharp sword light pierced through his body. Sheng Guanqi felt the vitality in his body flowing quickly. In the next moment he couldn't feel anything. His head had been chopped off, and his soul had been destroyed by the great dragon sword soul. This powerful being of the fifth lineage, the youngest almighty being, was killed by Lin Xian at this very moment. If others knew the news they would go crazy and be extremely shocked. Because it was too heaven-defying. Lin Xian also heaved a sigh of relief and withdrew the demon-slaying sword formation. Although the battle was very short, he used all his strength in every attack. He didn't have any carelessness. After all, Sheng Guanqi was a very difficult opponent. Because of that, he used all his strength and made the battle end so quickly. After all, in a battle between experts, sometimes one move could determine the winner. After killing Sheng Guanqi, Xianqi raised his hand and shot out a pitch-black flame, burning Sheng Guanqi's body to ashes. In the next moment, he turned around and continued to head toward the depths of Thousand Spirit Mountain. 2 days later, Lin Xian used the super teleportation formation to leave the southern region. Because of the teleportation formation, Lin Xian came to the western region of the eastern wilderness. His next goal was simple, which was to continue to cultivate and strive to break through as soon as possible to become a true almighty. Therefore, after coming to the western region, Lin Xian also went to the mountains and swamps to look for heaven and earth treasures. He cultivated here for half a year. In this half a year, his realm was very stable, and his strength was also slowly increasing. Not only that, but the entire eastern wasteland also gradually calmed down. That was because the All Beginnings Holy Land was frantically searching for Lin Xian. However, they were unable to find him in the end. It was the same for the Wavering Light Sacred Land. They couldn't find anyone, so they could only grit their teeth in anger. Not only that, but the All Beginnings Holy Land also released new information. With her great talent and outstanding strength, Lu Mingyue became the new saintess of All Beginnings. This news spread across the entire eastern wilderness. For a moment, everyone was discussing animatedly. As for the people of the All Beginnings Holy Land's fifth bloodline, they were enraged to the point of going crazy. Their peerless experts even smashed several dozen mountain peaks in succession. But no matter what, they couldn't change this fact. Lin Xian, who was far away in the western regions, also received the news. Immediately he narrowed his eyes. Lu Mingyue had become the new saintess, so it was time to reap the benefits. Indeed, as soon as Lu Mingyue became the saintess, she began to fulfill her promise. She was also looking for Lin Xian. Lin Xian set off and once again teleported back to the southern regions. He met with Lu Mingyue. This time they met in the depths of the Myriad Spirit Mountain range. This was because the people of the All Beginnings Holy Land's fifth bloodline were currently in a frenzy. As long as they had any news about Lin Xian, they would send out supreme experts. Even those peerless supreme experts were crazily attacking. Therefore Lin Xian didn't go to the All Beginnings Holy Land. Instead, he invited Lu Mingyue to meet him in the Myriad Spirit Mountain range. After not seeing her for half a year, Lu Mingyue had become even more outstanding. Her entire body emitted a pure and holy aura. She was like a fairy descending from the heavens. Nothing more beautiful could be imagined. Around her, streams of primal chaos energy drooped down and enveloped her like multicolored light. Lu Mingyue extended her jade-like hand and took out a small box. She slowly opened it. The multicolored light inside rushed into the clouds, illuminating the sky. Here are 10 pieces of nerves. 10 pieces of divine crystals. Hearing this, Lin Xian was extremely shocked. His gaze became somewhat fiery. He couldn't help but admit that Lu Mingyue was truly generous. It seemed that helping Lu Mingyue become the new saintess was the correct choice. One had to know that he had risked his life and offended so many major powers and powerful characters in order to obtain 9 pieces of divine crystals. But now, Lu Mingyue had given him 10 pieces of divine crystals. This happiness had come too suddenly. Not only that, but Lu Mingyue also took out a second box. This box contained all kinds of heavenly treasures, spiritual medicines, spiritual pills, weapons, and defensive equipment. I can't give you the cultivation technique of the All Beginnings Holy Land. So, I'm giving you these heavenly treasures as compensation. Then she gave Lin Xian a white jade pendant. This jade pendant can transmit information to me. If you need me for anything in the future, you can use this jade pendant to transmit information to me. Of course, the distance is within 100,000 miles. Finally, I'm giving you 2 mineral veins. As for what you can dig out from them, that will depend on your luck. Holy shit. 2 mineral veins. This chick's hands were simply too big. One had to know that mineral veins were different from divine crystals. They were tangible, but mineral veins couldn't be probed to see how many things were inside. It could be said that every mineral vein was the lifeline of a holy land. He didn't expect Lu Mingyue to give him 2 mineral veins. Of course, he knew that these definitely weren't the best mineral veins in the All Beginnings Holy Land. They might just be 2 ordinary mineral veins. But no matter what, Lin Xian's harvest was enormous. It far surpassed his expectations. Oh, that's right. You shouldn't appear in the southern region for the next period of time. Of course, you shouldn't attract too much attention in the eastern wasteland. That's because many people are looking for you. Among them are the peerless experts of our All Beginnings Holy Land's 5th bloodline. There are also people from the Wavering Light Holy Land. Even the All Beginnings Saint Sun and the Wavering Light Saint Sun are looking for you. The All Beginnings Saint Sun and the Wavering Light Saint Sun. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and sneered. They actually dare to look for me? They are truly blind. Don't worry. As long as they dare to come, I'll definitely kill them. Don't be careless. Although I know you're very strong, I still have to warn you. The disparity between Saint Suns is enormous. People like the All Thunder Saint Sun are only the most ordinary Saint Suns. They can't contend against Almighties. However, there are some peak Saint Suns who can even kill Almighties. For example, the Wavering Light Saint Sun. The Wavering Light Saint Sun could kill Almighties. Chapter 1973. The Alcade Saint could kill a powerhouse? Lin Xian was extremely shocked. He hadn't expected the Alcade Saint to be so powerful. That's right. He can indeed kill powerhouses. Furthermore, no one knows the limit of the Alcade Saint's strength because no one has ever seen him fight with his full strength. When he killed a powerhouse, he appeared to be very relaxed. Lin Xian was astonished. The Alcade Saint was truly a ferocious person. I want to know how many people in the Eastern Wasteland have such strength? Lin Xian asked in a deep voice. He discovered that the Eastern Wasteland had given him too much of a shock. He had originally thought that with his current strength, he would be able to surpass all of the Eastern Wasteland's younger generation. But now it seemed that wasn't necessarily the case. There wouldn't be too many, but there wouldn't be too few either. For example, the Alcade Sacred Ground, the Dao Yi Sacred Ground, the Yi family, the Gu family, and other ancient families might have 1 or 2 heaven-defying geniuses who can kill powerhouses. So you should be careful. Furthermore, the cultivation of these saints and saintesses is extremely powerful. Who knows, they might break through at any time. Hearing this, Lin Xian nodded. Indeed, he had a fortuitous encounter. The other saints and saintesses also had all sorts of natural treasures. Perhaps these people would also break through. At that time they would become a great enemy. Lin Xian also understood this. Thus he said, "Don't worry. I'll keep a low profile for now." Following this, Lin Xian went to the 2 veins that Lu Mingyue had left for him. He used his heavenly secret divine eye to dig out some stones and sealed the rest with a great array. He would come back later. After doing all this, Lin Xian used the super teleportation array and arrived at the Eastern Wasteland's Western Wasteland to cultivate. However, on this day the place he was cultivating had changed. There were several powerful fluctuations in the vicinity, and there were even sounds of intense fighting. Someone was fighting? Sensing this change, Lin Xian frowned. He was currently in a vast mountain with no one around. Yet there were actually people fighting here. Could it be that they had found him? At first, he thought that it was the All Beginnings Holy Land or the Wavering Light Holy Land that had come. However, when he probed with his soul power, he discovered that this wasn't the case. This was because he realized that the people who were fighting were very powerful. However, the techniques and abilities they used were completely different from those of the All Beginnings Holy Land and the Wavering Light Holy Land. It was even different from any cultivation technique he had seen in the Eastern Wilderness. Those who were fighting had streams of dragon chi coiling around their bodies, as if they were true dragons, providing immense power. Every move they made was filled with a destructive aura. The dark red divine dragon was also alarmed. He came out to take a look and then exclaimed, "It's the people of the Central Continent." Central State. Hearing this, Lin Xian squinted his eyes. The true spirit world was divided into 5 continents. East Wasteland, Central Continent, South Mountain, West Mo, and North Plains. The Central Continent referred to the Central Continent of the true spirit world. According to legend, that place was incomparably vast, filled with outstanding heroes, and had incomparably magnificent mountains and rivers. It was the true center of the continent. Unexpectedly, these people were from the Central Plains. But why were they in the Eastern Wasteland? Furthermore, they were fighting intensely. Could it be that something had happened? Thus, in the next instant, Lin Xian's figure flickered, and he flew forward. The spiritual chi in front of him fluctuated violently, and resplendent light illuminated the entire sky. One of them was a middle-aged man with the aura of 7 true dragons coiling around his body, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. In his hand was a silver saber. The sharp saber light burned fiercely, slicing apart the surrounding space. Opposite the middle-aged man were 5 black-clothed people. Black chi coiled around each of them, transforming into black dragons. Not only that, but the 5 of them also had black wings on their backs. They were like black dragon wings, covering the sky after they spread out. The 5 black-clothed people and the middle-aged man were fighting intensely together. Terrifying, killing, intense soared into the sky, as if it could topple mountains and overturn seas, causing the surrounding mountains to explode. Bust. Suddenly, one of the black-clothed people flapped the black dragon wings on his back and quickly arrived in the sky. The sword in his hand suddenly enlarged and like a black thunder, it slashed towards the middle-aged man. Boom. The middle-aged man waved his palm, and the dragon chi on his body accompanied his palm to meet the shocking sword in the sky. Boom. The collision of the 2 huge forces was earth-shattering. However, at this moment 2 black-clothed people appeared behind the middle-aged man like ghosts. The thin swords in their hands suddenly stabbed out. Bang bang bang. The middle-aged man was stabbed and flew backward. However, the other 2 dragon chi in his body also blasted the 2 black-clothed people away. Lin Xian, who was hidden in the void, frowned as he watched the intense scene unfold. The people in front of him were powerful, but the middle-aged man's situation was not good. He was already injured previously, and now that he had been stabbed twice, his injuries were even more serious. However, he had no intention of joining in. Firstly, he did not know these people at all and he did not know why they were fighting. He had no interest in getting involved in such a storm. The situation in front of him changed again. The 5 black-clothed people formed a mysterious formation and surrounded the middle-aged man. This caused the middle-aged man's injuries to become even more serious. The middle-aged man also used some kind of powerful secret technique to kill the black-clothed people without any regard for his own life. Finally, 2 black-clothed people were killed. The injuries on his body were also extremely serious. He looked like he was about to die. However, in the end, the middle-aged man attacked crazily and killed another 2 black-clothed people. Only 1 black-clothed person was left. The middle-aged man's aura was also on the verge of death. Save my life and I'll give you a great opportunity. At this moment, the middle-aged man quickly shouted in Lin Xian's direction. I've been discovered? Lin Xian frowned when he heard that. The remaining black-clothed person snorted. This is the Eternal Dynasty's business. Those who have nothing to do with it get lost. The Eternal Dynasty? Lin Xian frowned even more when he heard that. He knew that the situation in the Central Continent was different from the Eastern Wilderness. The Eastern Wilderness was dominated by the clan of the Ancients and the Sacred Grounds, while the Central Continent was dominated by the Imperial Dynasty. Of course, there were also the Sacred Grounds, but their numbers were fewer than the Eastern Wilderness. In the Central Continent, the Imperial Dynasty was the overlord. Their status and strength were equivalent to the clan of the Ancients, and their bloodline was passed down. Some of the imperial dynasties were extremely terrifying and had produced great emperors. The Eternal Dynasty that the black-clothed person mentioned was one of them. However, he did not expect that their people would be here. The black-clothed person shouted coldly. At the same time, the thin sword in his hand stabbed out again, turning into countless sword intents that enveloped the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's injuries worsened. The middle-aged man roared crazily and fought back with all his might. I have news about the nest of 10,000 dragons. Help me. I want to tell you the news. Hearing that, the black-clothed person frowned, and the murderous aura on his body became even colder. Chapter 1974. However, the dark red divine dragon's body trembled and his eyes lit up. Kid agreed to him. You must get news of the nest of 10,000 dragons. The dark red divine dragon didn't explain too much, but Lin Xian knew that with the dark red divine dragon status, it was definitely unusual for him to be so excited. So in the next moment he nodded and walked out of the void. It was actually a young man. However, when Lin Xian walked out, the middle-aged man was disappointed when he saw Lin Xian's appearance. Because he didn't expect that it was only a young man hiding here. The black-clothed man heaved a sigh of relief and laughed arrogantly. Song, it seems that today is really the day you die. Do you think a little child can save your life? Then he stared at Lin Xian. Kit, you really don't know what death is? With your status, you dare to walk out? Do you really think that treasures are so easy to get? If you hadn't come out before, I could have let you go. But now, since you've heard the news of the nest of 10,000 dragons, I won't let you go. Kneel obediently and wait for death. When I deal with this guy, I'll give you a quick death. Otherwise, if you dare to escape, I'll first cut off your limbs, then pull out your tendons, skin you alive and refine your soul. I'll let you taste the pain of the 18 levels of hell. The black-clothed man's voice carried a trace of coldness and ferocity. The middle-aged man also had a look of disappointment on his face. From his perception, Lin Xian was only a 6-star king. How could such a person contend against the black-clothed man? Therefore, he gritted his teeth and once again raised the remaining strength in his body and attacked with all his might. A huge ball of light blasted forward. At the same time, he turned into an afterimage and flew into the distance. Boom! The black-clothed man split the ball of light with his sword and laughed sinisterly. With a wave of his palm, a black ghost claw covered the sky and earth, enveloping the surroundings. It trapped the middle-aged man who was escaping and mercilessly slapped him down. A black aura slapped the middle-aged man's body, causing him to fall to the ground. Want to escape? Not so easy. However, at this moment Lin Xian moved. Mysterious sword patterns appeared under his feet and instantly spread in all directions. At the same time, the dragon sword domain covered the sky and enveloped the black-clothed man. You're courting death. The black man was furious. His move had already rendered the middle-aged man immobile. Just one more strike and he would be able to finish him off. However, he didn't expect that an ant in his eyes would actually make a move. This was unbearable. He was a mighty figure, yet his opponent was merely a mere 6-star king realm cultivator. Yet he actually dared to attack him? He was courting death. In the next moment he threw out a punch. The violent fist surged and blasted toward the dragon sword domain in the sky. Boom. A collision heaven and earth. However, the dragon sword spirit domain shone brightly and emitted a sharp aura. It did not break. This scene greatly surprised the black-clothed man. He was simply too surprised. One had to know that he was an almighty and he was extremely powerful. With a light wave of his hand, he could easily kill a 6-star king. Not only was Lin Sun not killed, but his domain didn't even break. This was too unbelievable. Kid, who are you? The black-clothed man roared. Lin Xian sneered. I'm the one who's going to kill you. Kill me? What a joke. Go to hell first. The black-clothed man roared. The black dragon wings on his back flapped quickly and turned into 2 black heavenly blades. They slashed toward Lin Xian mercilessly. The speed of this attack was too fast. Moreover, the black wings were wrapped in endless black aura. At this moment it exploded and quickly cut through the void. Get lost. Lin Xian roared. In the demon-slaying sword formation, blood-red sword chi quickly met the attack. In the sky, endless blood-red light appeared and dyed the void red. Even the spiritual power in the sky gathered and merged into the blood-red sword chi. Boom, boom, boom. The two collided and thousands of black cracks appeared in the void. The black-clothed man's scalp went numb. His face became extremely ugly. This was because he felt an unusually sharp aura wrap around him, as if it could unfold his body. Boom. In the next moment he was sent flying. Damn it, how is this possible? The black-clothed man's face was extremely ugly. As an almighty he was very powerful. Moreover, he was an expert from Jianghu. In his opinion, the people from Eastern Wilderness were not worth mentioning. Moreover, Lin Sun was only a 6-star king. Such a person was no different from an ant in his eyes. But now an ant was sent flying by him. On the other side, Lin Xian stood in the void. His black hair fluttered, and his eyes were as sharp as sword light. A powerful aura spread out, and the entire void rumbled. His voice was cold. Let me see how the almighty of Jianghu is different from Eastern Wilderness. As soon as he said that, thunder fell from the sky. The black-clothed man's face became gloomy because Lin Sun was too confident. Lin Sun didn't seem to be afraid of the almighty at all. He was treating them as equals. But how was this possible? Was he a saint from some Eastern Wilderness sacred ground or a peerless genius from one of the ancient families? Which family are you from? The black-clothed man asked coldly. A dead man doesn't need to know so much. Lin Xian snorted. Then he took a step forward and performed the heavenly dragon's 8 steps. His entire body turned into a sword light and instantly rushed over. The demon-slaying sword was quickly performed, and streaks of blood-red sword chi rushed forward. Heaven and earth trembled because the attack was too terrifying. It was as if nothing in the world could stop it. The black-clothed man's face changed as he quickly retreated. At the same time he threw out a shield to block the attack. He was simply too shocked. Because he didn't expect Lin Sun to be so powerful. Moreover, he had fought with the middle-aged man for many days, and his body was already injured. At this moment he couldn't unleash his full power. Therefore, in the face of such a fierce attack, he could only retreat quickly. However, as an almighty he was still infuriated. Therefore in the next moment he roared angrily. A shocking murderous aura emerged from his body and rushed out quickly. Not only that, the black dragon wings on his back flapped. Then, a black pterosaur rushed out from beside him and quickly enlarged. It was as if a demonic beast had descended into the human world. Boom. The black pterosaur shadow stretched out a claw and grabbed at Lin Xian from all directions. Strong winds howled between heaven and earth, and terrifying energy shook the entire void. Attack together. Don't waste time. Chapter 1975. Between heaven and earth, the wind howled, and the terrifying energy shook the entire void. Waves of air turned into sharp sword light that swept across the surroundings. Attack together, don't waste time. On the other side, Lin Xian did not attack alone. The dark red dragon also attacked. Because there was no need to pay attention to the rules when dealing with this kind of black-clothed man. The dark red dragon roared, and its body suddenly enlarged, turning into a true dragon that was hundreds of feet long. With a wave of its dragon tail, a terrifying light directly blasted towards the black claw. Boom boom boom. Then the black claw directly exploded, and the black pterosaur phantom also trembled violently. Damn it, what is this? It also has the aura of dragons? The black-clothed man looked at the transformed dark red dragon in shock. Looking at the other party's appearance, it seemed to be related to dragons. Of course, he did not expect the dark red dragon to be a real dragon. Because even in Middle State there were no real dragons, only some flood dragons. Boom. At this moment, the little white monkey appeared, and its furry little claws directly slapped the black-clothed man's head. Suddenly the world spun and the black-clothed man was temporarily dizzy. In a battle between experts, this kind of dizziness was very fatal. Therefore Lin Xian grasped this opportunity and merged with the dragon sword realm. His entire body turned into a shocking sword light and slashed forward. This sword light was like the divine light of the immortal Tao, and it had an incomparably sharp aura as it slashed down. Poof! With a scream, half of the black-clothed man's body was directly split open. This sword had split him into two halves. Buzz! Then the black gas on his body rolled, and a small pterosaur flapped its wings, carrying the black-clothed man's soul, and was about to soar into the sky. But in the next moment, the dark red dragon opened its mouth and spat out a ball of fiery red dragon flame, directly burning the black pterosaur phantom and the black-clothed man's soul. This last black-clothed man was quickly killed by the joint forces of Lin Xian, the dark red dragon, and the little white monkey. Whoosh! Lin Xian heaved a sigh of relief, then looked in the distance at the middle-aged man who had fallen to the ground. The next moment he walked over. Are you all right? Lin Xian helped the middle-aged man up and fed him a pill. The middle-aged man was panting heavily. His breathing was very unstable. It was only after he took the pill that he gradually calmed down. Then he said weakly, "Let me tell you, the nest of 10,000 dragons is right there, right there." At this point his voice became extremely weak. Lin Xian also frowned and lowered his head to listen carefully. However, at this moment, the middle-aged man's eyes suddenly erupted with a fierce light. His entire body went from weak to incomparably strong in an instant. The berserk soul power transformed into an awl, ruthlessly piercing towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian didn't expect this at all, so he was hit. Instantly, his entire body stiffened, and his gaze became lifeless. Damn it, it's a possession. The dark red divine dragon's expression changed drastically when he saw this. He didn't expect this middle-aged man to be so despicable. He actually wanted to steal Lin Xian's body at this time. In the next moment he roared angrily, raised his dragon claw, and slapped the middle-aged man's body. Immediately the middle-aged man was smashed into pieces. However, it was useless. The middle-aged man's soul had completely entered Lin Xian's mind. In Lin Xian's mind, the middle-aged man's soul transformed into a flood dragon, wreaking havoc in a frenzy. He wanted to destroy Lin Xian's soul and take over his body. To be honest, I don't want to do this either, but my body's injuries are too severe. I still can't fully recover. Since you can kill almighties, you must have a special bloodline. If I can obtain your body, I might be able to advance to the next level in the future. The middle-aged man's voice was cold and emotionless. So, go to hell. The middle-aged man went crazy. His soul was like a flood dragon emerging from the sea, quickly heading towards the depths of Lin Xian's mind. As long as he occupied the depths of Lin Xian's mind and destroyed his soul power, the body would be his. Soon, his soul reached the depths of Lin Xian's mind. In the next moment he was about to take over the entire body. However, at this moment, a cold snort came from the surroundings. You want to take over my body? You're really courting death. Lin Xian's voice sounded. Then a white fog appeared around him. Lin Xian's soul power also became stronger in an instant. It transformed into a dragon-shaped sword shadow that instantly rushed out and enveloped the middle-aged man's soul. What? How is this possible? How can your soul power be so strong? The middle-aged man's soul was split in half, but he didn't die immediately. Instead, he let out a scream of horror. This was because he found it hard to believe that the other party's soul power was stronger than his. This was too unbelievable. One had to know that he was an almighty. He could definitely crush any soul below the almighty level. However, the other party's soul power was too strong. It even surpassed his. He couldn't believe it. Could it be that the other party is an old monster? He's just hiding his cultivation? The middle-aged almighty was bewildered. However, in the next moment he was so shocked that the two halves of his soul almost disappeared. This was because he saw a terrifying scene. In the depths of his mind, there was a dragon-shaped sword shadow that emitted an aura that terrified him. What is this? Why is it so scary? The middle-aged man was terrified because just the aura alone was enough to kill him. Dragon soul. This is the aura of a dragon soul. Could it be that you're one of the dragons? No, this is impossible. The middle-aged almighty shouted crazily. Then he seemed to have thought of something and screamed. Could it be that this is the legendary Great Dragon Sword Soul? Heavens, you actually have the Great Dragon Sword Soul. He screamed crazily because other than the Great Dragon Sword Soul, he couldn't think of anything else that could have such a terrifying aura. You know quite a lot, but it's too late. A cold voice sounded. In the next moment, Lin Xian's soul and the Great Dragon Sword Soul merged into a sharp sword light and rushed forward. In an instant, the middle-aged man's soul was destroyed. In the outside world, the dark red dragon was waiting anxiously. Although he knew that Lin Xian's soul was strong, he was still very nervous. This was because the battle between souls was very terrifying. If the soul was injured, it would be harder to recover than physical injuries. It was even possible that he would become an idiot. Therefore he was very worried. However, in the next moment he noticed that Lin Xian's body was trembling slightly. Immediately he nervously paid attention. Lin Xian's lifeless eyes gradually regained their luster and then became abnormally sharp. Who are you? Is it Kid Lin or someone else? Chapter 1976. Who are you? The dark red divine dragon asked nervously. He wasn't sure who the owner of this body was. It's me, ruffian dragon. Don't worry, Lin Xian said in a deep voice. That guy was killed by my great dragon sword soul. Hearing this, the dark red divine dragon heaved a sigh of relief and said, that old guy deserves to die. He actually wanted to possess your body. Fortunately, he didn't succeed. That's right, I almost failed miserably. Lin Xian was also afraid. If he didn't have the great dragon sword soul, he would have been in danger this time. The consequences of being possessed by an almighty being were very terrifying. How is it? Did you get any news? Could it be that the news about the nest of 10,000 dragons is also fake? The dark red divine dragon asked again. He was very concerned about the nest of 10,000 dragons. That's not fake. Lin Xian said in a deep voice. This middle-aged man did get some information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. Then Lin Xian took out a palm-sized broken map from the middle-aged man's storage ring. The nest of 10,000 dragons is in the central continent. And from the looks of it, those dynasties should be looking for it and preparing to set off. The other dynasties also found out about the nest of 10,000 dragons. The dark red divine dragon was shocked. Then he said, Kid, let's go to the central continent too. Sure, but tell me first, what is this nest of 10,000 dragons? Lin Xian was still a little puzzled. The nest of 10,000 dragons can be said to be the nest of dragons. Dragons, isn't that your hometown? I don't know. The dark red divine dragon shook his head. When I was born it was in the East Sea. At that time I was the only one. There were no other dragons. So, I'm not a dragon from the nest of 10,000 dragons. There's actually such a thing. Lin Xian was surprised. This was the first time he knew that the dark red divine dragon came from the East Sea. In the true spirit world, other than the 5 continents, the rest of the world was filled with oceans. The ocean near the East Wasteland was called the East Sea. The East Sea surface area was even more vast. It was a few times bigger than the East Barren continent. Could be said to be boundless. No one knew where the end of the East Sea was. This nest of 10,000 dragons was the place where the ancient dragons resided. There were heaven-shaking treasures inside, and there might even be treasures left behind by the dragons. I am a dragon and you have the great dragon sword spirit. We are both related to dragons. If we can obtain the treasures in the nest of 10,000 dragons, it will definitely allow our strength to undergo earth-shattering changes. Moreover, there are many dragon veins in the central region. If we can find some dragon crystals or gather some dragon aura, it will greatly increase our fighting strength. I see. Hearing this, Lin Xian's eyes flickered, emitting a bright light. Since that's the case, let's go to the central state, Jianghu. It was the center of the true spirit continent, with its vast territory and abundant resources. Not only were there countless spirit veins here, but there were also countless dragon veins. These dragon veins were buried deep under the ground, their roots intertwined. Among them, there were many famous dragon veins that were occupied by the various great dynasties. However, there were also some unknown dragon veins hidden in the mountains and swamps. If anyone could obtain them and take them for themselves, they would be able to obtain heaven-defying fortune. Who knew, they might be able to establish a new dynasty. There were currently 9 great dynasties in the central state, and each of them was an incomparably heaven-defying overlord. Under these 9 great dynasties, there were 3,000 dynasties. These dynasties were also incomparably terrifying, and they were even comparable to unparalleled great sections. However, these dynasties did not exist alone, but were attached to the 9 great dynasties. These 9 great dynasties were not the final existences. Rumor had it that a long time ago, above the dynasties, there was a legendary sacred dynasty. That was the overlord of the world. However, in the endless years, only one sacred dynasty had appeared. It unified the entire central state. It could be said that it had started the most prosperous era of the central state. However, it was still destroyed in the end, turning into the 9 great dynasties and 3,000 dynasties. As for how it was destroyed, no one knew. However, there were rumors that the sacred dynasty was too heaven-defying. A god descended from the sky and directly destroyed it. However, whether there were gods or immortals in this world was still unknown. Therefore, the true situation of the destruction of the primordial sacred dynasty had already disappeared in history. However, this did not stop the central state from yearning for the sacred dynasty. Especially the 9 great dynasties, each of them wanted to annex the other dynasties and evolve into the only sacred dynasty. Lin Xian used many super teleportation formations and finally arrived at the central state. It took him more than 2 months just to use this kind of super teleportation array. If he flew at his speed, he would not be able to reach the central state in less than a few decades. Lin Xian had now arrived at one of the 9 great dynasties, the Tai dynasty. At this moment he was flying towards the glazed city of the Tai dynasty. This was because when he entered the Tai dynasty, Lin Xian received a piece of news that the entire Tai dynasty was currently selecting experts to join the royal palaces. Lin Xian felt that this move had something to do with the nest of 10,000 dragons. So he discussed with the dark red divine dragon and decided to join a royal palace first to investigate the situation. Up ahead was Glazed City. This city was very famous in the Tai dynasty because there was a Valurium palace inside. Valurium Palace was a king of the Tai dynasty. Not only was he powerful, he was also a peerless expert. His identity card was that of the royal family, and he possessed the purest royal bloodline. Therefore, Glazed City was also famous throughout the world. At this moment in the Tai dynasty, 27 royal palaces were recruiting heroes and heroes from all over the world. Valurium Palace was one of them. Lin Xian's target this time was also Valurium Palace. After flying for a while, Lin Xian finally saw the Valurium capital. The tall city walls were like divine pillars that reached the heavens. They were at least 300 meters tall. The enormous city gates were incomparably grand and heavy. Even a great expert would not be able to shatter them. Lin Xian looked into the distance from the clouds. He saw that there were many enormous palaces within the city. They were like stars scattered all over the city. Among them, many of the palaces flickered with resplendent light. They were all supported by formations that formed enormous spirit formations. Flying above the Valurium capital was forbidden. Everyone entered through the main gate. If they did not, they would be killed by the formations. no one would be held responsible. At this moment, a dignified voice sounded from the city ahead. Then the surrounding cultivators landed one after another. They did not dare to provoke Valurium Palace, so they could only enter through the main gate. Lin Xian also landed on the ground and walked forward. There were almost 100 guards standing in front of the city gates. Every one of them was clad in battle armor and exuded a powerful aura. They were like war gods. After paying the entrance fee, Lin Xian entered. Chapter 1977. The Tai dynasty was one of the 9 great dynasties of the central continent. It was one of the top factions. Normally, it was harder than ascending to the heavens to join the Tai dynasty. But this time, the Tai dynasty had taken the initiative to recruit the world's geniuses. This was undoubtedly a chance for experts to join the Tai dynasty. Therefore these people hurried over. As long as they joined the Tai dynasty, they would be able to enjoy a lifetime of wealth and endless treasures. After entering the city, these people didn't wander around randomly. Instead, they all headed for the Valurium Palace. The Valurium Palace was even more majestic. It towered in front of them like a heavenly palace. Although it was called a palace, it was far too large. It was even larger than some of the larger cities. There were also guards standing at the entrance of the prince's mansion. There was even a table, paper, and pen next to it. Cultivators had to register their information. Because not everyone was qualified to enter the prince's mansion. Only young geniuses and powerful kings were allowed entry. Lin Xian found a place and walked up. At this time, one of the armored guards spoke in a low voice. Write down your age, identity, and cultivation here. Lin Xian filled in the information without a word. When the guard took it, he immediately frowned. 24 years old, unaffiliated? A 6-star king? He was a little suspicious. Unaffiliated meant that he was a wandering cultivator. A wandering cultivator who had become a 6-star king at the age of 24 wasn't something that just anyone could achieve. After all, even the genius disciples of some aristocratic families weren't that great. As for those people, they all had enormous clans providing them with heavenly treasures. A wandering cultivator without abundant resources and talent could become a 6-star king at the age of 24. Everyone else around them felt that this was very suspicious, let alone the guard. Who is that kid? How did he become a 6-star king? It doesn't look like it. He must be trying to bluff his way through. Bluff his way through? Then he's dead meat. A few days ago, someone tried to bluff his way through by filling in his information, but was sent flying by a single punch from these guards. He was seriously injured and almost crippled. I think this kid's fate will be very miserable. A series of noises sounded in the surroundings, while the expression of the guard at the front darkened. His eyes flickered as he stared at Lin Xian and coldly said, "Brat, take my punch." This guard was also a 6-star king. At this moment he wanted to test if Lin Xian had the strength of a 6-star king. Therefore he threw out a punch. This punch contained the power of a 6-star king, and it was extremely terrifying. That terrifying blast of air made the cheeks of the surrounding people hurt. Faced with the terrifying punch, Lin Xian gently extended his hand and grabbed at the fist in front of him. The next moment he caught the fist. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. They did not expect that Lin Xian would be able to withstand the punch. And he was able to take it so easily. That guard was also stunned. Next, he subconsciously wanted to withdraw his fist. But he found that he couldn't do it. Because the other party's palm was like an iron clamp, firmly holding his fist. Not only that, but he also felt that he could not use the power in his entire arm. He had never seen such a situation before. However, at this moment Lin Xian asked in a deep voice, "How is it? Do I have the cultivation of a 6-star king?" "Yes." The guard spoke with difficulty. There was no longer contempt in his eyes. Instead, it was replaced by a deep sense of fear. Seeing that the other party had admitted it, Lin Xian let go of his hand and strode into the mansion. Wherever he passed, the crowd made way. No one dared to stop him. This was because the surrounding people had already seen Lin Xian's strength. With such strength, he could be considered a genius among the younger generation. Who is this person? This kid is so strong. I don't know. I've never heard of him. Looking at his strength, he should be very famous among the younger generation. Look, what's his name? Thus, everyone looked at the information that Lin Xian had filled in. His name is Lin Xian. What an unfamiliar name. Indeed, I've never heard of it. Discussions broke out one after another. Obviously, they were even more curious about Lin Xian's identity. After entering the mansion, Lin Xian shuttled through the long corridor. The surrounding palaces and pavilions were very majestic. Not only that, but there were also other warriors running quickly. Judging from the looks of these people, their expressions were grave and even a little anxious. Lin Xian was curious, so he stopped one of them and asked, "Brother, what's going on? Where are you going? You must be new. Today is the day of the selection. Everyone is heading to the training field." The day of the selection? Lin Xian wanted to ask more, but the warrior had already run away. He had no choice but to follow the crowd. Finally, he saw a crowd gathering in front of him. It was a sea of people, and the noise was so loud that the clouds in the sky were shaken away. When he arrived nearby, he realized that it was a huge square. It was very vast. To be honest, it was the first time Lin Xian saw such a huge training field. It was like a city that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. On top of it, there were huge ancient bluestones with runes flickering on them. As expected of the Tai dynasty. Just the training field of the mansion was so magnificent. Lin Xian was surprised. Not only was the square huge, but there was also a fierce battle in the middle of the training field. Countless figures were besieging a burly man. The burly man was very huge, like a small mountain. He stood in front of them, exuding an unparalleled aura. Clearly, this was an almighty and an extremely powerful one at that. There were at least 1,000 people attacking, and each of them had a powerful aura. Streams of light flickered as they attacked the burly man. Bang, bang, bang. These people were all below the level of a mighty figure. Although they fought together, they could not shake the burly mighty figure. The terrifying sound was like thunder, resounding in all directions. The runes on the ground flickered and the void shook. As for the mighty figure, he even used his king's domain, enveloping everyone in it. The surrounding people were discussing animatedly. Their eyes were shining, and their expressions were incomparably excited. I wonder who will be able to successfully break through this time? Who knows? That burly man is the famous moving mountain general in the mansion. He is known to have infinite strength. I guess even a mighty figure of the same level can't beat him. None of these people are mighty figures. It's impossible to beat the moving mountain general. We can only see who can be chosen by the moving mountain general and enter the mansion. That was indeed the case. Everyone nodded. Chapter 1978. Aside from the Mountain Razor General, there's also the Flaming General. These two are in charge of the selection, so it's up to their will to decide who gets in. That's right. If you want to enter the Valurium Palace, you must first gain the approval of these two generals. The crowd was abuzz with discussion. At this time, someone sighed, "It looks like there's no chance today." It doesn't matter if there's no chance today. The selection is held once every half a month. We'll have plenty of chances. Yeah, I won't leave until the last moment. Everyone's eyes were resolute. It was obvious that they wanted to use this opportunity to enter the Valurium Palace. Lin Xian listened from the side and got a general idea of what was going on. The big man in front was called the Mountain Razor General. He was one of the selectors, and the people fighting against him were competitors. Whoever caught the Mountain Razor Generals, I had a chance of breaking through and entering the Valurium Palace. When he thought of this, Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and looked forward. He had to admit that the Mountain Razor General was terrifying. He surpassed the average great expert. Every move he made had the power to devour the heavens and split the earth. That person passed. Someone exclaimed. He's been acknowledged by the Mountain Razor General. Lin Xian also saw that the Mountain Razor General's domain had wrapped around a person and sent him out of the domain to a safe place. In other words, a cultivator had been acknowledged by the Mountain Razor General. That kid must be from House Zhou. His luck was so good that he caught the Mountain Razor General's eye so quickly. Lin Xian looked into the distance and saw a young man dressed in yellow standing there. He was ecstatic and unusually excited. Lin Xian noticed that he was a 6-star king. He nodded slightly when he saw this. It seemed that a 6-star king could enter the Valurium Palace. It shouldn't be difficult for him to enter. However, he frowned slightly because he noticed that there were many 6-star kings still fighting. It was just that none of them had been chosen. Therefore, he didn't know what the Mountain Razor General's basis was for choosing his candidates. Was it talent, combat experience, or cultivation? Boom boom boom. At this time, the sound of fierce collisions suddenly rang out in front of them. The Mountain Razor General had raised countless gales and thunder with a wave of his hand. Hundreds of people were sent flying. However, even more martial artists charged over. King's domains lit up one after another as they clashed with the mountain-moving Great General's domain, creating thunderous booms. This sound was extremely terrifying, and the entire void could not withstand it. Not only that, the surrounding cultivators were also affected. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and carefully observed the battle process of the mountain-moving general. He found that the other party's strength was very strong, far beyond what he had seen before. Moreover, the other party did not use brute force. Instead, he used his strength with great skill. It could be said that there was not a single bit of waste. That's the little girl from the Liu family, right? She actually passed as well. Right at this moment, the crowd cried out in surprise again. This was because the king's domain had brought a young girl to a safe place. That young girl had also passed the test. Seeing this scene, everyone was extremely excited. Because this meant that others also had a chance to pass. That's right, this young woman's cultivation was only at the 5-star king realm, yet she'd passed, and this undoubtedly gave everyone confidence. However, Lin Xian knew that although this young girl's cultivation was only at the 5-star king realm, her battle techniques and use of domains were extremely exquisite. It was also because of this that she had successfully broken through and entered the Wang mansion. From the looks of it, the people who were accepted by the prince's mansion were either geniuses with talent or experts with true strength. In this case, I should have no problems. Lin Xian nodded slightly. He couldn't participate today. He only needed to wait for half a month before participating. At that time, he would be able to enter the Wang mansion. Then he might be able to obtain more information about the nest of 10,000 dragons by asking around in the Wang mansion. This mountain-moving great general was indeed impressive. He wondered what kind of person that Li Hua great general was. Lin Xian retracted his gaze from the battlefield in front of him and looked around. Soon he saw a figure in the distance. It was a youth who looked to be 15 or 16 years old. He was wearing a fiery red robe and had delicate features and an outstanding temperament. There was a strong aura of fire on his body. He was like a flaming child. Could it be him? Lin Xian furrowed his brows. He could sense a terrifying aura emanating from the 16 or 17-year-old boy. He observed carefully. Although that person only had the appearance of a youth, his aura had reached the almighty level. Moreover, there were many people around him who were carefully serving him. He should be Li Hua great general. Bang. However, at this moment, the mountain-moving great general in front of him laughed 3 times again. Then he slammed his hands on the ground. The terrifying force was shaking, and the entire prince's mansion was shaking. As for the people around him, they kept retreating. Some of them were even sent flying by the impact. Be careful, dodge quickly. Exclamations could be heard because many people were descending towards the crowd. These figures all had fierce auras, and ordinary people really didn't dare to take them head-on. Therefore, everyone dispersed. However, among them, a figure flew towards Lin Xian. Lin Xian frowned. However, he did not dodge. Instead, he waved his sleeves as well, forming a ball of gentle energy that caught hold of that figure. I'm actually fine? The figure was very confused. He thought that he would be seriously injured from the fall. He didn't expect to be caught by someone else. In the next moment he stood up and looked behind him. Brother, were you the one who saved me? Thank you very much. This was a young man in his late 20s. He had a round face and looked honest. His cultivation was at the level of a 6-star king. However, it seemed that he had just become a 6-star king. His aura wasn't very strong yet. He looked at Lin Xian with gratitude. My name is Ma Chao. Thank you for your help, brother. The young man smiled. How should I address you, brother? After the selection is over, the two of us must have a good drink. That's easy. My name is Lin Xian. I've just arrived at Valurium Palace today, so I'm not very familiar with the surroundings. Perhaps I'll have to trouble you, old brother. You just arrived today? Ma Chao paused for a moment, then smiled and patted Lin Xian's shoulder. Of course. I'm not very strong, but I'm quite familiar with the situation in the Wang mansion. Since I've already been kicked out, there's probably no chance for me to go back. Why don't I give you a brief introduction? The selection is held once every half a month. However, not everyone participates every time. Most people only participate once a month and leave one spot empty. Because there are some injuries during the selection, they need some time to heal. After all, the Mountain Razor General is a great expert. Of course, you've just arrived. You can participate in half a month later. Chapter 1979. I don't know the details, but it must have something to do with the Tai dynasty. Because the entire Tai dynasty, the 27 imperial mansions are recruiting. According to my estimation, the Tai dynasty should be making a big move, or they might be going to war with the other dynasties. By the way, there's one more thing I need to remind you. If you want to participate next time, you have to come earlier and try to make sure you're in the top 1,000 during the selection. Because only 1,000 people are allowed to participate in each selection. If you're not in the top 1,000, you can't participate at all. You can only come back and wait for the next selection. Oh? 1,000 people? Lin Xian was surprised. Just rush over? That's right. Just rush over. Of course, don't be too stupid and rush to the front. After all, it's very stressful to face an almighty alone. You just have to blend in with the crowd and be in the top 100. That way you can guarantee that you won't be in the lead and that you'll be qualified. Ma Chao looked like a veteran at first glance. When he talked about the selection, it was all about some small tricks. Brother Lin, which family are you from? Ma Chao asked. I don't have a family. I'm from a small mountain village, Lin Xian said. So, you're a rogue cultivator. To be able to cultivate to a 6-star king, you're really not simple. I think your talent must be especially good. As long as you participate a few more times, I believe you should be able to pass within a year, Ma Chao said from the side. Indeed, he didn't know Lin Xian's true strength. He was just guessing based on the strength of an ordinary 6-star king. This was because only a few people were able to pass the selection. There were a total of hundreds of thousands of people participating in the selection, and more warriors would arrive one after another. Therefore, the pressure and competition would be very high. There were very few people who could pass the test on their first try. There were almost none of them. By the way, Brother Lin, you just came here. You must not have bought a room. Do I need to buy a place to stay? Lin Xian was puzzled. Ma Chao said, yes, hundreds of thousands of people will come here. There won't be enough rooms. I have to buy it. And if you come late, you won't be able to buy it even if you have the money. How about this, you come to my place, I happen to have 2 rooms. It's a good opportunity for us to communicate. All right, thank you, brother. Lin Xian didn't think that these selections would be so popular that they didn't even have enough space to stay. The two of them continued to chat, and Lin Xian mostly asked about the prince's mansion. After another period of time, the battle ahead ended, and so did the selection for the day. A total of 5 people passed. The surrounding people cried out in surprise because 5 people had passed, which was already a lot. Sometimes only 2 or 3 people would pass, or even just 1 person. Those who passed were jubilant and prepared to report to the people in the prince's mansion. As for those who did not pass, they hung their heads dejectedly and dispersed one after another, preparing to return and cultivate diligently. Try to come back next month. Let's go, Brother Lin. Let's leave this place as well, Ma Chao said. Lin Xian nodded and the two of them walked into the distance. The surrounding people were surging, and some of the pavilions on both sides were opened and even hung signs. Lin Xian took a look and found that they were selling martial arts manuals, elixirs and weapons. You can do business here? Lin Xian was surprised. He didn't expect to see such a scene in the prince's mansion. Yes, Ma Chao said. This prince's mansion is not ordinary, there are all kinds of things inside, it can be said to be a city. Of course, this kind of thing can only be found in the periphery of the prince's mansion. And in the core of the prince's mansion, ordinary people can't enter at all. Sure enough, many people walked towards the elixir pavilion. And most of them had just finished participating in the competition. They had injuries on their bodies, and because they stayed for too long, they used up all the healing elixirs they had. So they could only buy them. Lin Xian, on the other hand, followed Ma Chao to a small courtyard. It was a small pavilion. There were 2 rooms and a small courtyard inside. There were a few pine trees in the courtyard and it looked very simple. However, Ma Chao was very happy. Don't judge this place by its simplicity, it's already considered a better room, the other places don't even have courtyards. At this point, Ma Chao said proudly, and this is because I came early that I managed to get it. If I came a little later, I'm afraid we wouldn't even have a room. We can each have a room. When we have nothing to do, we can spar in the courtyard and exchange ideas. Okay, thank you very much. Lin Xian smiled. The two of them were talking, but at this moment, there was a commotion outside. Lin Xian frowned immediately. Ma Chao's expression changed. What's wrong? Lin Xian asked. He noticed that Ma Chao's expression was a little strange. It's those guys, I didn't expect them to come at this time, Ma Chao said in a low voice. Brother Lin, don't get into a conflict with those people later. No matter what they say, just pretend you can't hear them and ignore them. Lin Xian wanted to ask why, but the door in front of him opened and a group of people walked in. These people looked arrogant and their aura was overbearing. Moreover, their clothes were all embroidered with a silver wolf head. Gah. Lin Xian frowned. He was familiar with such attire. But why would there be a gang in the prince's mansion? Just as the other party walked in, Ma Chao quickly whispered, "That's right, it's a gang. They are Wolf of War's men." After all, there are hundreds of thousands of people here preparing for the selection, so naturally there will be alliances. Wolf of War is one of the more powerful groups. They have gathered more than 3,000 people and they are very powerful. Ordinary kings are no match for them. So Brother Lin, don't fight with them later. While Ma Chao was speaking in a low voice, the people from the Battle Wolf gang walked over with large strides. "May I know why my friends from Wolf of War are here?" Ma Chao asked carefully. After all, he was alone and was no match for these people. Wolf of War's men snorted and looked at Ma Chao with contempt. Then one of them sneered, "What's the matter?" "It's very simple. Wolf of War has recently recruited a few brothers, but they don't have a place to stay. You two hurry up and get out. Give us his room." "What? Give up his room?" Hearing this, Lin Xian frowned and Ma Chao's expression changed. He had gone to great lengths to get these 2 rooms. If they were occupied, they would be gone. Chapter 1980. What? You don't want to? Seeing Ma Chao's hesitation, Wolf of War's men's faces darkened. Waves of murderous aura gushed out from their bodies. It covered the heavens and the earth and rolled away like smoke signals. Sigh. Seeing this scene, Ma Chao sighed. There was no other way. Wolf of War had too many people. Even if he could beat 1 or 2 of them, he couldn't beat a group of people. If he didn't give up his room, these people would probably beat him to a pulp. By then he wouldn't be able to participate in the selection. Thinking of this, he could only grit his teeth and prepare to give up his room. "Okay, I'll give up my room." With that, Ma Chao turned to Lin Xian and said, "Brother Lin, let's go." Before Lin Xian could say anything, Wolf of War's men spoke again. They sneered, "You want to leave? Did I say you could leave? What else do you want? We've already given up our rooms." Ma Chao was also a little angry. After all, those who could come here were all geniuses. At this moment, being so humble was his limit. "What do you want?" "It's very simple. The 2 of you have dirted this place. Why aren't you kneeling and cleaning it up? If I find a trace of dust, I'll break the 2 of your legs." The cold voice echoed in the small courtyard. After Ma Chao heard this, his body trembled and his face became ferocious. Cleaning and cleaning on their knees. This was clearly humiliating them. Although he wasn't a top genius, he was still a genius. When had he ever been humiliated like this? Therefore, in the next moment, he gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it, you've gone too far." "Gone too far?" Wolf of War's men sneered, "Yes, we've bullied you. What, do you want to fight back? If you dare to fight back, we'll cripple you and make it impossible for you to participate in the selection." As soon as he said that, 6 or 7 members of the Wolf gang walked up and stared coldly at Ma Chao and Lin Xian. Whoosh, whoosh. Ma Chao trembled with anger while Lin Xian frowned. It seemed that this group of Wolf of War's people were really arrogant. They actually dared to bully him. Who was he? His strength had long reached the level of a powerful being. Why would he care about the Wolf of War at this moment? If it wasn't for the fact that he was worried about Ma Chao hanging around here in the future, he would have made a move the moment the other party entered. But now, it seemed that even if Ma Chao backed down, these Wolf of War people did not intend to let them go. Since that was the case, Lin Xian had nothing to worry about. On the other side, Ma Chao was also angry because this kind of unreasonable request would make even a clay figurine go berserk. He snorted coldly, "Although your Wolf of War is powerful, I, Ma Chao, am not to be trifled with either. It's really not good for either of us to lose face." "Lose face? You want to lose face with our Wolf of War? You think too highly of yourself. Who do you think you are? You're just a 6-star king. Wolf of War has 3,000 brothers. Do you think you can fight against him?" The warriors of Wolf of War laughed disdainfully. "That's right, you dare to be arrogant in front of our 3rd brother. You really don't know what's good for you. Kneel down obediently and kowtow to our 3rd brother to apologize, and I can spare your life. Otherwise you're dead meat." The few of them laughed arrogantly. The middle-aged man at the front had a sneer on his face as he looked down at Ma Chao condescendingly. "Fuck, it seems that you really don't know what's good for you." The person called 3rd brother shouted coldly, "Break his legs and pin him to the ground." Immediately, the 2 warriors beside him walked up and looked at Ma Chao with sinister smiles. They were about to attack. Ma Chao also roared angrily and circulated the spiritual power in his body. He said, "Brother Lin, charge out with me. Don't be surrounded by these guys." As soon as he finished speaking, he was stunned, because he realized that Lin Xian had actually taken a step forward and blocked in front of him. Then Lin Xian waved his hands and gently slapped out twice. Immediately, the two warriors of Wolf of War who rushed over were sent flying. Their chests were caved in and their hands were broken. They smashed directly into the wall, forming a ruin. What? How dare you attack? Wolf of War's people were stunned, as if they couldn't believe that the other party dared to attack. Ma Chao was also stunned. He originally wanted to break out of the encirclement with Lin Xian and leave this place. But he didn't expect that before he could finish speaking, the other party attacked. Forget it, let them attack. Ma Chao sighed. Anyway, they would attack when they broke out of the encirclement. Just as he was about to shout for Lin Xian to leave, Wolf of War's people on the opposite side reacted and immediately roared angrily. You dare to attack Wolf of War? It seems that you don't know what's good for you. Cripple your own arms and obediently kneel on the ground and admit your mistakes. The person called Third Brother looked even more ferocious. Kid, you dare to attack my people in the Wolf Gang. You're dead meat, bang. Before he could finish speaking, Third Brother was grabbed by the neck and lifted up. Ma Chao's eyes widened. Looking at this scene, it was as if he had seen a ghost. Lin Xian stretched out a hand and grabbed Third Brother's neck. Third Brother, on the other hand, was like a rabbit. He kept kicking his legs, but he couldn't use any strength in his body. Third Brother's face was red. He struggled all over, and the spiritual power in his body was frantically circulating, but it was restrained by a mysterious force. In other words, he was now like an ordinary person and couldn't use any strength at all. Wolf of War, is he that strong? Su Chen asked coldly. His eyes were cold as he stared at Third Brother. Feeling this gaze, Third Brother's scalp went numb. The reason for that was because those gazes were simply too cold. They were like two awls that directly pierced into his soul. So strong. Behind, Ma Chao was also stunned. This was because Third Brother was also a 6-star king, and he was even stronger than him. But now, such a strong person was like a rabbit in Lin Xian's hand, unable to resist at all. This meant that Lin Xian's strength was far above Third Brother's. This was completely beyond Ma Chao's expectations. The others were also stunned. The warriors of Wolf of War quickly roared, Kid, let go of my Third Brother or you're dead. That's right, I advise you to stop and don't do anything stupid. Those people were terrified and didn't dare to go forward. Firstly, Lin Xian's strength was too terrifying. Secondly, their Third Brother was still in his hands. If they went forward now, they couldn't guarantee that the other party wouldn't kill them. Behind, Ma Chao was also worried. He whispered, Brother Lin, don't be agitated. Just control him. Let's leave quickly. Don't be surrounded by Wolf of War's men. Ma Chao had been here for a long time. He knew that Wolf of War was definitely terrifying. He had 3,000 geniuses gathered together. It could be said that he was very strong. Chapter 1981. Wolf of War was very powerful. Ordinary people couldn't resist at all. Even if Lin Xian killed the Third Brother now, he wouldn't be able to escape Wolf of War's pursuit. Crack. Lin Xian squeezed and the Third Brother's neck tilted and he fainted. Lin Xian waved his hand, and the Third Brother slammed into a wall, then fell to the ground. He spat out blood. Seeing this, Wolf of War's men hurried over. Ma Chao's scalp went numb. You killed him? No, just knocked him out, Lin Xian said in a low voice. Fortunately. Ma Chao heaved a sigh of relief. As long as the other party was alive, there was still hope. He hurriedly said, Brother Lin, let's go. Go. Why should we go? Lin Xian turned around and looked at Ma Chao. This house is pretty good. I think we should live here. What? Live here? Ma Chao was stunned. What was this guy thinking? He quickly said, Wolf of War's men will be back soon. Don't worry, Brother Ma. What will come will come. No matter who comes, I'll take them on. Lin Xian patted him on the shoulder. This is my rent. But. Ma Chao wanted to say something, but suddenly, there was a tremor in the distance. The void fluctuated and a powerful aura gathered here. It's over. Wolf of War's men are here. Ma Chao's expression became very ugly. He quickly said, Brother Lin, we can still make it if we leave now. If we wait any longer, we won't be able to escape. However, Lin Xian shook his head. He looked into the distance and said indifferently, Brother Ma, what is the bottom line of the Wang Mansion? For example, if this Wolf of War comes looking for trouble with us, will the Wang Mansion care about it? For example, if I kill someone, will the Wang Mansion care? As long as it's not too big of a commotion, the prince's mansion usually won't care. After all, this is only the periphery of the prince's mansion. However, it's usually impossible to kill people. Of course, there are exceptions unless you are a peerless genius or a powerful cultivator. The imperial palace would be eager to recruit such a person, so why would they blame you? Understood. Lin Xian nodded. It seemed that geniuses and experts were sought after no matter where they went. Since that was the case, things would be easier. A cold smile appeared on Lin Xian's lips. This way he wouldn't have to hold back. What? You want to attack us? The rest of the Wolf of War warriors were stunned. Then they roared and charged at Lin Xian. Lin Xian coldly snorted and punched out with both fists. A terrifying aura of destruction gushed out. Immediately those people were entangled. Then with a boom, those people's bodies exploded into pieces. Blood spurted out and the pungent smell of blood filled the air. This scene stunned everyone in the courtyard. Not only in the courtyard but the surrounding people were also stunned. Someone dared to kill people in the prince's mansion, and it was Wolf of War's men. Was this heaven-defying? All of a sudden the surrounding martial warriors also gathered around. Behind them Ma Chao was already stunned. He didn't know what to say at all and even his mind was a little blank. Previously he thought Lin Xian was just joking about killing people. He was threatening Wolf of War's men. However, he didn't expect that the other party was serious and really attacked. It's over, we're really dead this time. Ma Chao's face was extremely ugly. He knew that Wolf of War would definitely not let this matter rest. However, he wouldn't just stand by and do nothing. Because this matter had something to do with him, he would fight Wolf of War together with Lin Xian. At this moment, the third brother in front of him woke up after being fed a pill. However, when he woke up, the first thing he saw was his underling being blasted into pieces by a punch. This scene directly provoked him. As Wolf of War's man, he usually flaunted his power and no one dared to provoke him. However, now someone dared to kill Wolf of War's men. This was unforgivable. In the next moment he stood up and roared angrily, leading his men to attack. Clang, clang, clang. The third brother and the other two warriors drew 3 long sabers, and the aura on their bodies suddenly erupted, sweeping through heaven and earth. The terrifying king's domain also surrounded them. Whoosh! The 3 sabers slashed down, and the terrifying aura instantly enveloped Lin Xian. Crack, crack, crack. Lin Xian waved his hand, and the icy aura in his body condensed and enveloped the 3 saber lights. Then the 3 saber lights were frozen into ice cubes. Then Lin Xian took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of the third brother. His 5 fingers formed a claw and instantly grabbed the other party's head. Bang! Lin Xian pressed his palm down on the other party's head. Immediately, the third brother felt 5 rays of sword chi madly gushing out from his fingers. They pierced into his body. Then all the spiritual energy in his meridians were completely destroyed. Not only that, his entire body knelt on the ground. Poof! Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices, and his soul was instantly destroyed. What? He was killed. Third brother. The 2 warriors beside him roared crazily. They didn't expect that their third brother couldn't even block a single attack from the other party. Who is he? They were terrified. However, in the next moment 2 illusory palms grabbed their heads and killed them in an instant. The 3 corpses knelt on the ground, blood flowing down their cheeks. The 3 of them had long lost their vitality. Looking at this scene, Ma Chao was completely stunned. He knew that Lin Xian was powerful, but he didn't expect Lin Xian to be so powerful that he could kill Wolf of War's men as easily as crushing ants. As for the surrounding people, they were also extremely shocked. They didn't expect this young man to be so crazy that he dared to kill Wolf of War's men. Moreover, he even killed an important member of Wolf of War. Boom, boom, boom. Countless powerful auras filled the sky, and then figures appeared around the courtyard. They all had a silver wolf head painted on their bodies, and they were all members of Wolf of War. As soon as these people appeared, they sealed off the entire courtyard. Then they walked in. When they saw the 3 kneeling corpses in the courtyard, they were all stunned. Especially when they saw that the one kneeling at the front was their third brother. Immediately these people's scalps went numb, and their expressions were incomparably solemn. They knew that things had gotten out of hand because this third brother wasn't an ordinary person. He was a core member of Battle Wolf. To be precise, he was the younger brother of the leader of Battle Wolf. There were a total of 6 leaders in Battle Wolf, and the leader had 2 younger brothers. This third brother was one of them. But they didn't expect that he would be killed here. This was definitely a shocking matter. They couldn't deal with such a matter at all, so they could only wait for the other leaders to arrive. Chapter 1982. All they did was seal off the entire courtyard to prevent Lin Xian and Ma Chao from escaping. Looking at the scene around him and the flickering array formation, Ma Chao felt a chill in his heart. Lin Xian, on the other hand, looked indifferent. He stood with his hands behind his back, not looking nervous at all. They were forced to do this, but Wolf of War had gone too far. He was just fighting back. Even if he killed someone, he wouldn't care. Moreover, this might be a way to attract the attention of the Wang mansion. The surrounding crowd was shocked. Who is this kid? He actually dared to kill a core member of Wolf of War. He's definitely dead. He killed the great leader's younger brother. He's definitely an important figure. I'm afraid the great leader and the entire Wolf of War won't let that kid go. That's right. He's just a hothead who just came to the Wang mansion. He probably doesn't know anything. I'm afraid he's already scared to death. Young people should keep a low profile. Otherwise they won't even know how they died. More and more people gathered around, surrounding the area so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. The innermost layer was completely guarded by Wolf of War's men. At this moment, there was a sudden commotion in front of them. Then the crowd parted and 5 figures quickly walked over. The person in front was a burly man with a full beard. When he saw the 3 corpses in the courtyard, his face immediately became ferocious. Damn it! Who is it? Who killed my third brother? Get the hell out here! He roared crazily like a mad lion, and the terrifying sound waves pierced the surroundings. Feeling the sound waves, the surrounding warriors who were watching the show trembled and their faces turned pale. They quickly circulated their spiritual power and sealed their ears. There were also 4 people standing behind the lion-like man. One of them had a gloomy expression, and his appearance was similar to that of the dead third brother. He was also the burly man's brother. The other 3 looked different, but without exception, their eyes were abnormally cold. Other than the third brother, the other 5 people standing were the core members of Wolf of War. And the entire Wolf of War was built by them. As for the martial artist called Third Brother, he was the great leader's favorite younger brother. But who would have thought that he would be killed by someone? Not only did the 5 great leaders come, but 300 of Wolf of War's elite members also came. They had completely sealed off the surroundings, and a cold aura surrounded the entire small courtyard. The temperature in the small courtyard continued to drop, and the air was filled with endless killing intent. It was simply unbearable. Even though Ma Chao was a 6-star king, his entire body was drenched in sweat at this moment. His body even started to tremble. The reason for that was because the killing intent was simply too terrifying. In front of the 5 chiefs and 300 martial artists, he couldn't resist Fatty at all. Lin Xian was still very calm. He was like an elegant immortal king, calm and unrestrained. Seeing the 5 great leaders come, he said indifferently, "Your little brother was too arrogant. I've already killed him. Let him be a good person in his next life." "Damn brat, you killed my third brother." Hearing Lin Xian's words, all eyes instantly fell on Lin Xian. Especially the big bearded man, whose expression was even more ferocious. "I killed him because he deserved to die." Lin Xian's face also darkened. "Alright, take these corpses and get out of here quickly. Otherwise, don't start a massacre before me." "Start a massacre?" Everyone's scalps went numb. This brat actually wanted to start a massacre? Did he know what kind of people he was facing? That was the Wolf of War. Although it wasn't much in the Wang mansion, it was definitely a huge monster in the periphery of the Wang mansion. No one could go against them. In an instant, the atmosphere became extremely tense. Not to mention the periphery, even the news had spread to the inside of the Wang mansion. Many people came out to watch the battle. This was also Lin Xian's goal. If he could uproot the Wolf of War today, he would definitely be able to display his powerful strength. He believed that the Wang mansion would invite him without the need for an assessment. "Brat, which family are you from?" The leader of the Wolf of War asked coldly because he felt that the identity of the person who dared to touch him in the Wolf Gang was definitely not simple. Therefore he had to ask in advance. At the same time, the surrounding warriors of the Wolf of War emitted a cold light as they looked at Lin Xian. Beside them, rays of light bloomed, forming a terrifying pressure that enveloped Lin Xian. Just the aftermath of this pressure was enough to make the surrounding warriors unable to withstand it. Their faces turned pale and their bodies trembled. Ma Chao's scalp went numb. Lin Xian snorted coldly. He took a step forward and stood in front of Ma Chao. The great dragon sword soul in his body surged, completely ignoring the terrifying pressure. At the same time he said coldly, "There's no need to ask. I don't belong to any sect. If you want to make a move, just do it." Didn't belong to any sect. Hearing this, everyone was speechless. The 5 leaders of the Wolf of War revealed sinister smiles. Since he didn't belong to any sect, it meant that he didn't have any backing. Even if they killed him, no one would stand up for him. Since that was the case, they didn't have to hold back. "Brat, go to hell?" The 5 leaders sneered. However, Lin Xian used the Heavenly Dragon's 8 steps and his speed was extremely fast. In an instant he was in front of the 5 leaders. The apocalyptic black dragon fist in his hand quickly surged out and blasted towards one of them. Boom. A black dragon shadow appeared and a destructive aura surged. In an instant, the 4th leader of the 5 leaders was directly sent flying. Then, his figure swayed and retreated again, returning to his original position. The whole process was so fast that the surrounding people didn't see what was going on. They didn't even realize that Lin Xian had moved. The 4th leader of the Wolf of War was sent flying and vomited blood. Damn it, what's going on? What happened? Why was the 4th leader of the Wolf of War sent flying? Everyone was shocked and couldn't believe it. The leaders roared crazily, "Brat, you're courting death." They were really mad. They had so many experts, but the other party was still able to succeed. This really made them jump up and down like thunder. Lin Xian sneered, "What Wolf of War? In my opinion, you're just a chicken and a dog. You think you can bully others because you have more people? You want to bully me with your numbers? You must be dreaming. You're no match for me at all in a one-on-one fight. Even if you all come together, I'm not afraid." Chapter 1983. If you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Boss Wolf of War's voice was cold. Although they only had 300 men this time, it was too easy to deal with one person. Hearing this, Lin Xian snorted coldly. He rose from the ground and flew into the distance. "Follow him. Don't let him escape." Boss Wolf of War waved his hand. Immediately, the 300 warriors around him charged toward Lin Xian. The other 4 leaders also rose into the air. Although they were shocked that Lin Xian had sent their 4th leader flying with one punch. In their opinion, Lin Xian had only relied on his speed and sneak attacks. If they fought head-on, Lin Xian would definitely not be their match. Therefore, they chased after him without hesitation. When the surrounding warriors saw this scene, they were all stunned. They did not expect that Lin Xian would dare to fight Wolf of War's 5 leaders and 300 men alone. How could an ordinary challenger fight against such a group? Perhaps only the moving mountain general. Oh, only a terrifying almighty like the Li Hua general could fight against them. How could other challengers fight against so many experts? Let's go and see what's wrong with this kid. The surrounding people quickly followed after him. They did not want to miss such an exciting battle. Ma Chao's scalp went numb. At the same time, he was extremely nervous. He also followed closely. Otherwise, the news would have spread quickly among the surrounding people. In the entire mansion, hundreds of thousands of warriors outside knew about it. In an instant, most of the warriors walked forward. They wanted to see what kind of confidence Lin Xian had that he dared to fight Wolf of War. Even those cultivators who had returned to their own places and were preparing to cultivate were alarmed. They looked at the torrent-like crowd and were extremely shocked. What's going on? Has the selection started again? How is that possible? The selection just ended. It hasn't even been a day. How could it have started? What's going on? I've been here for a few years. I've only seen such a grand scene during the selection. But since there's no selection, why are so many people looking forward? What are they looking at? Everyone was discussing. Obviously, these people did not understand what was going on. So they followed him. Soon, they discovered that Wolf of War's men were all furious as they charged forward. Wolf of War's men, what do they want? Could it be that you want to make a move in the prince's mansion? These people don't know what's good for them. Wolf of War can strut around in the periphery, but in the entire palace he's nothing. It's only because the moving mountain general and the leaving fire general couldn't be bothered with him that they didn't expel Wolf of War. But now, Zhan Lang's men actually want to make a big fuss. Isn't he afraid of alerting the Wang Mansion and being completely eradicated by the Wang Mansion? They were too shocked. No matter how strong one was, they had no choice but to lie down before Valurium Palace. Why was Wolf of War acting so crazily today? Don't you know? There's a young man who killed Wolf of War's younger brother and severely injured the 4th master with a single punch. Right now, the 4 leaders of Wolf of War are leading a group of elites from the Wolf gang to hunt down that kid. What? What kind of person is so strong? Could he be a peerless genius from some family? No, he's not. I heard him say that he's a wandering cultivator who doesn't belong to any sect or faction. What? A wandering cultivator dares to be so arrogant? Come, let's go take a look. Everyone was discussing animatedly. At the same time, they moved their bodies and quickly followed. More and more people joined the group. The scene was like an ordinary selection in the Wang mansion. There was a sea of people and an unusually lively atmosphere. On the other hand, Wolf of War's men were gnashing their teeth in anger. The 4 leaders' faces were especially dark. First of all, they hadn't expected such a big commotion. More than 100,000 people had rushed over to watch. This scene could only be compared to the selection competition. They were afraid of alerting the Wang Mansion, the Moving Mountain General, and the Leaving Fire General. But at the same time, they were unwilling to accept this outcome. The kid in front of them was flying slowly and provoking them. They couldn't tolerate this. Therefore, they gritted their teeth and swore to kill him. Brother Lin, what do you want? You're not really going to fight these people, are you? Ma Chao was terrified. Apart from the Moving Mountain General and the Leaving Fire General, he'd never seen anyone who could fight against several hundred people alone. Brother Ma, to tell you the truth, I'm here to join the Valurium Palace. I wanted to wait until the next selection, but it seems that I can't wait that long. Ma Chao was very confused. What did this have to do with Wolf of War? But the next moment he was so shocked that he almost bit off his own tongue. This was because Lin Xian continued, if I were to kill these experts of the Battle Wolf gang in front of everyone on the training field, don't you think that will attract the Wang Mansion's attention? I'm sure they'll invite me to join Valurium Palace then. What? You want to fight them alone? Just to show the Wang Mansion? Ma Chao was shocked. This was too much. One mistake and he'd be killed by Wolf of War's men. There were several hundred of them. Many of them were 6-star kings. Could he really fight them? Unless he was a great expert, even the best of geniuses wouldn't be able to fight them. Don't worry, I'm confident. Lin Xian nodded slightly. He was indeed confident because his combat strength had reached the level of a great expert. Fighting against 300 elites was no problem at all. Brother Ma, blades have no eyes later. You should watch from the crowd. All right. Ma Chao sighed. The current situation was still beyond his understanding. Therefore he couldn't help much. He pushed himself into the crowd and slowly followed. In front of them, Lin Xian strolled leisurely as if he was taking a stroll, heading towards the vast arena. Gradually, the crowd also realized that this kid was going to the martial arts practice field of the Wang Mansion. The people from the Battle Wolf gang also laughed sinisterly. They were actually going to the martial arts practice field for the final battle. It just so happened that the martial arts practice field was big enough to accommodate more than 100,000 people. It was more than enough for them to fight, and they didn't have to worry about destroying the Wang Mansion. For a moment, Wolf of War's experts revealed sinister smiles. If the kid went somewhere else they might be worried. However, the martial arts practice field was different. It was a place for fighting. Even powerful beings could fight there. Therefore they didn't have to worry at all. It didn't take long for Lin Xian to arrive at the martial arts practice field. With a flash of his body, he stood on the martial arts practice field. Chapter 1984. With a wave of his red sleeves, Lin Xian stood with his hands behind his back like a god of war. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, Wolf of War's 4 faction leaders led 300 elites and landed quickly. They surrounded Lin Xian. Behind them, more than 400,000 martial artists were watching. In an instant, the empty and quiet martial arts practice field became lively again. Such a big commotion naturally attracted the attention of the people in the Wang Mansion. When the people in the Wang Mansion found out that it was Wolf of War who was causing trouble, they frowned. Some even said that they would take action to suppress him. However, when the matter reached the ears of Moving Mountain General and Li Hua General, the situation was different. This was because when the 2 generals found out that this was a newcomer who wanted to challenge the entire Battle Wolf gang, they immediately became interested. Then they told the people in the Wang Mansion not to take action. As long as the newcomer did not destroy the Wang Mansion, they would let him fight. In fact, 2 of the great generals even decided to watch from the shadows. Not only that, many people from the king's palace also went there because they were curious. Who was it that had the guts to challenge the entire Battle Wolf gang? The Moving Mountain Great General was also excited. His bronze eyes shone with a bright light. Who is this kid? How can he be so bold? On the other side, Li Hua General also narrowed his eyes. I wonder if he is a peerless genius or an idiot? If he is just playing to the gallery, then he deserves to be killed. If he can really stand up to Wolf of War, it is not impossible to recruit him. Now, the two of them were most concerned about whether Lin Xian could stand up to Wolf of War, or was he just playing to the gallery to attract everyone's attention. In the martial arts practice field, Lin Xian faced the 4 faction leaders and 300 elites. He looked calm and fearless. As for the surrounding martial artists, they were whispering to each other, their faces filled with shock. Is this guy really going to stand up to so many experts? Is he crazy? Who does he think he is? An almighty? I am afraid that among the almighties, no one can do this. Those princes and princesses should be able to do it as well. But what kind of person is that? He's a peerless genius with a terrifying identity. How can this brat be compared to a prince? The crowd discussed animatedly. Most of them shook their heads and sneered. They believed that it was impossible for Lin Xian to resist. This is the grave you chose for yourself? The gang leader sneered. No matter where you run to, we won't let you go today. The second faction master's expression was also ferocious. The remaining 2 faction masters also snorted coldly. A fierce killing intent burst out from his eyes. Lin Xian sneered, "Cut the crap, make your move." He didn't pull out the 9 underworld devil sword because he didn't need to use it to deal with these people. Wolf of War's men roared angrily when they saw Lin Xian's insolence. Soon after, the big gang master gave the order, and 300 elite martial artists quickly charged at Lin Xian. Kill. The murderous aura of those people was like smoke signals, connecting heaven and earth. Every single one of them was incomparably terrifying, like a god of death. So many people were charging forward, covering the sky and covering the earth. Their momentum was extremely terrifying. Even the 100,000 spectators were trembling at this moment, and their faces were pale. Lin Xian snorted coldly, and a fierce light burst out from his eyes. Then, his body swayed and completely disappeared into the void. In an instant, he appeared in front of the 2nd faction master and the 5th faction master. Then he quickly punched out the Armageddon Black Dragon Fist. Black aura surrounded his fists, and 2 dragon heads fiercely bombarded the 2 of them. Boom. A loud dragon roar sounded, and a destructive aura swept out in all directions. The void was instantly torn apart and countless cracks appeared. A terrifying aura enveloped the entire martial arts practice field. It was as if a peerless divine dragon was looking down on the common people. The 2nd faction master and the 5th faction master had no power to resist at all. The 2 of them were hit by the black dragon heads. Then their bodies flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Seeing this scene, the big gang master and the other members of the Wolf of War were all stunned. They couldn't believe that the other party was so powerful. If the other party had sent the 4th faction master flying with 1 punch, it was because of his speed and sneak attack. But now, under the siege of so many people, the other party could still easily injure the 2nd faction master and the 5th faction master. This was definitely not a sneak attack. The 100,000 spectators were also stunned. In their opinion, the 4 faction masters led 300 elites to fight against a young man. This was definitely a one-sided massacre. They were afraid that the young man would be blasted into pieces in an instant. However, things went beyond their expectations. The young man was not killed, but the 2 faction masters of Wolf of War were directly sent flying. This scene deeply stimulated them. However, this was only the beginning. After the 2 faction masters were sent flying, the other 300 elites were also sent flying one by one. None of them could withstand Lin Xian's punch. What did I see? Wolf of War is being beaten up? Fuck, I must be under an illusion. Who can slap me? Slap, slap, slap. Many slaps were heard, and then everyone's cheeks turned red. However, they realized that the scene in front of them was still ongoing, and they were getting more and more shocked. How is this possible? Everyone stuttered because they couldn't accept this scene at all. Just half a day ago they had seen a similar scene. That was during the preliminaries when 1,000 experts besieged the Moving Mountain General. In the end, the Moving Mountain General was like a mountain god, and everyone was sent flying. Only a few people could pass the test. The scene now was very similar to the previous scene. Lin Xian was like a god of war, shuttling through the 300 elites quickly. Every time he threw a punch, someone would be sent flying. It was also because of the extreme similarity that the crowd was even more shocked. The Moving Mountain General was an almighty, and not an ordinary almighty. He was an extremely powerful almighty. Only then could he fight against 1,000 experts. However, the young man in front of them was at most a 6-star king. How could he fight against Wolf of War's 300 elites and the 4 faction masters? However, no matter how shocked they were, this scene was really happening. Soon, more than 100 elites were sent flying or lying on the ground, unable to fight at all. As for the remaining 2 faction masters, they were also sent flying. This was especially true when the Great Gang Master was heavily injured and coughed up blood from a single punch. The remaining 100 or so elites all fled one after another, because they didn't dare to continue fighting. Even the faction master and half of the elites were defeated. The remaining people were no match for him at all. Therefore they tried their best to escape. Lin Xian snorted coldly. The battle today was a show for the people in the Wang mansion. Chapter 1985. Therefore, when he waved his fists, the shadows of dragons appeared. The sky was filled with the shadows of the black dragons. Along with his fists, the remaining 100 or so martial artists were sent flying. Blood splattered everywhere. Other than Lin Xian, no one was able to stand up. Silence. Absolute silence. None of the 100,000 people in the martial arts practice field made a sound. They were all stunned. Not to mention these people, even the masters in the prince's mansion were shocked. This guy actually did it? Li Hua's handsome face was filled with a tinge of surprise. At the side, the eyes of the mountain-like moving mountain general shone brightly. He was so excited that he was trembling. Genius. He is definitely a genius in battle. I didn't expect to meet such a genius. His strength is definitely not inferior to those princes. In the crowd, Ma Chao was trembling with excitement. He didn't expect to see such a scene. Previously he was still worried about Lin Xian. He thought that Lin Xian was too arrogant to challenge Wolf of War alone. However, it seemed that this wasn't the case at all. Lin Xian had absolute confidence and strength to crush Wolf of War. Who exactly was he? Was he really an itinerant martial artist? Ma Chao was bewildered. He had never heard of an itinerant martial artist who had such incredible combat strength. Moreover, Lin Xian was only a young man in his 20s. The others also came back to their senses. When they saw the scene in front of them, they were shocked. Cries of surprise sounded and shattered the clouds in the sky. Then the sun shone on the martial arts practice field. Lin Xian was bathed in sunlight. He looked like a god of war as he stepped on more than 300 martial artists. His majesty was deeply imprinted in the hearts of the 100,000 people at that moment. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At that moment, the sky suddenly fluctuated violently. Then the 100,000 martial artists looked up at the sky. Then they exclaimed. That was because they discovered that numerous figures were descending from the sky like dark clouds. Among the 2 people in front, one was as tall as a mountain and was filled with explosive power. The other was a 16 or 17-year-old youth with delicate features, like a fairy child. The auras of these 2 people were so powerful that they suppressed everything. Moving Mountain General, leaving Fire General. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that the 2 generals would actually come to the martial arts practice field. One could imagine how sensational this battle was. Behind the 2 generals, there were also dozens of elite experts from the king's mansion. At this moment, everyone looked at Lin Xian as if they were looking at a monster. Lin Xian smiled as he looked at the moving mountain general and the leaving fire general. He knew that he had achieved his goal. Since these 2 generals were here, it was obvious that these people had seen the previous battle. He believed that he could easily enter Valurium Palace with his strength. Kid, what's your name? At this moment, Li Hua asked in a deep voice. There was a strange flame in his eyes, as if it could burn everything in time. Frost appeared in Lin Xian's eyes, blocking the heat. Then he said, Junior Lin Xian greets the 2 great generals. Lin Xian? Leaving Fire General murmured, his eyes flashing as if he was recalling something. In the Tai dynasty, which young genius had this name? But after thinking for a while, he realized that there was none. Moving Mountain General obviously didn't think so much. He laughed loudly, his voice resonating in the air. Then, his enormous body walked out and looked at Lin Xian. Kid, do you dare fight me? What? Moving Mountain General wants to fight this kid? Hearing this, the 100,000 cultivators in the martial arts practice field were in an uproar. This was too shocking. The moving mountain great general was a mighty figure with terrifying strength. Although the kid in front of them had defeated 300 elites from Wolf of War and 4 gang masters, it was still shocking. But they didn't think that the kid in front of them could contend with moving mountain general. Even Lin Xian was stunned. Could it be that the mountain-moving great general had seen through his true strength? But that shouldn't be the case. Although the fighting strength he'd displayed before was shocking, he hadn't fully displayed it. It should be impossible for Moving Mountain General to see through it. But so what if Moving Mountain General saw through it? His true fighting strength was at the level of a great expert. So in the next moment, Lin Xian nodded and said, "Sure." Wow. The crowd was shocked and they roared wildly, their voices echoing through the clouds. It was already shocking that Moving Mountain General was going to fight with a young genius alone. But what shocked them even more was that the young man in front of them didn't even bat an eyelid and agreed without hesitation. What exactly was he relying on? The news spread like wildfire. Suddenly, those cultivators who hadn't rushed over were moved and gathered. In an instant, the number of people increased again, reaching more than 200,000. Other than those who were cultivating in seclusion and hadn't come out, the rest of the people all came to the martial arts practice field. This scene was not much different from the one that had taken place during the selection. At this moment, more than 200,000 pairs of eyes were fixed on Lin Xian, trying to see through him. They couldn't understand where Lin Xian's confidence and reliance came from. He's a young genius. Disregarding everything else, just his courage alone is enough to instantly kill the vast majority of people. An old man in the crowd sighed. "Yeah, I've been here for 2 years but I haven't entered the manor yet. But I heard that he successfully attracted the attention of 2 great generals after only 1 day. It's only a matter of time before he enters the manor." Is this the difference in talent? The difference between a peerless genius and an ordinary king? It's so huge. Everyone was envious. Ever since Valurium Manor started recruiting, no one had ever attracted the attention of 2 great generals in a single day like Lin Xian. Moreover, he had entered Valurium Manor. This was definitely a record that had been set, a legend that had been broken. In front of him, the mountain-moving great general was also stunned. He did not expect Lin Xian to agree so readily. Then he laughed loudly, "Good kid, you're right for me. Don't worry, I won't bully you. I'll suppress my cultivation to the level of a 6-star king and fight you on the same level." A battle of the same level. The crowd was even more shocked. This was definitely going to be an earth-shattering battle. Lin Xian's eyes flickered. He didn't expect Moving Mountain General to suppress his cultivation and fight him on the same level. But he couldn't ask for more. Moving Mountain General was definitely an elite among the experts. Even if he suppressed his cultivation, his combat strength and experience weren't something an ordinary 6-star king could compare to. Chapter 1986. However, Lin Xian was also someone who could instantly kill a 6-star king. Therefore he had very few opponents. Now that he had met someone who was on par with him, he naturally would not miss it. Boom. Seeing that Lin Xian had accepted the challenge, the Moving Mountain General laughed out loud. In the next moment he stomped his foot on the ground. Instantly the entire ground began to tremble. The members of Wolf of War on the ground were all sent flying. In an instant the entire martial arts arena became extremely clean. The members of Wolf of War who were sent flying screamed in agony. However, they did not dare to resist. The Moving Mountain General was an extremely terrifying existence. If they angered him, he would probably kill all of them with a slap. Therefore they could only grit their teeth and endure the pain as they quickly retreated into the crowd. Originally they had planned to gather more people to take revenge on the other party. However, from the looks of it, revenge was futile. The kid in front of them had caught the eye of the Moving Mountain General. No matter the outcome of this battle, the other party would definitely be famous in the Wang Mansion. Such a person would be valued by the Wang Mansion. No matter how powerful Wolf of War was, they would not dare to go against such a person. Therefore they quickly fled with their tails between their legs. Boom, boom, boom. On the other hand, the Moving Mountain General let out a furious roar. A yellow light quickly appeared on his body. It intertwined in the air and formed a yellow chain that instantly bound his body. Then it disappeared into his body. In the next moment, the Moving Mountain General's cultivation level rapidly dropped from the almighty level to a 6-star king. He has indeed suppressed his cultivation level. More than 200,000 people exclaimed. Lin Xian's eyes were also shining. If that's the case, then I'll offend you. Since the other party had suppressed his cultivation level, he would also go all out. In the next moment, 2 black angry dragons appeared on his body and coiled around his hands. A violent and destructive aura quickly surged out and shot into the sky. At this moment, Lin Xian's black hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes were as sharp as a knife. However, he was not as big as the Moving Mountain General, but he was like a demon king looking down on everyone. What a powerful destructive aura. Kid, I was right about you. Take this. The moving mountain great general let out a hearty laugh before punching out. Although he had suppressed his cultivation to the level of a 6-star king, the power of the mountain-moving great general was not something that anyone could withstand. This punch was absolutely terrifying as it directly shattered the void. The fist seemed to be made of gold as it arrived in front of Lin Xian. Lin Xian also let out a low roar and waved his fist. The black dragon's aura spread out from his body and transformed into a dragon head that instantly rushed out. Boom, boom. The two collided, producing a world-shaking sound causing the entire sky to shake. What? He actually managed to resist it? He wasn't sent flying? Heavens, is this true? Everyone cried out in surprise when they saw this scene. This was because Lin Xian wasn't sent flying by a single punch like the other kings. Instead, he was able to contend against the mountain-moving great general. This was inconceivable. It should be known that even if the moving mountain general suppressed his cultivation, he would still be able to instantly kill an ordinary 6-star king. But now, a young man was actually able to contend with the mountain-moving general. This was simply too shocking. Good lad, you're really strong. This fist technique of yours should be very unusual. But you'll have to be careful from now on, the moving mountain general said loudly. His voice was like thunder. As soon as he finished speaking, his huge body suddenly grew in size. His originally huge arms doubled in size once again. Boom. This punch was enough to destroy everything. The power of this punch was simply too great. It had exceeded the previous ones. Hence, in an instant, the black dragon fist that Lin Xian had unleashed was directly shattered. Lin Xian was also forced to take a few steps back. The great dragon sword soul transport station in his body destroyed the remnant energy of the attack. Then Lin Xian stopped moving. In the next moment he opened his palms. Each of his fingers was wrapped in the shadow of a dragon. Then he slapped forward. The huge black palm covered the sky and the terrifying roar of a dragon filled the air. It filled the sky and enveloped the moving mountain general. Boom. The moving mountain general swung his fist and slammed it against the huge black palm. Immediately, a muffled thunder-like sound was heard. The two of them continued to attack, causing the sky to shatter and the earth to crack. Terrifying energy surged in all directions. Too strong. This kid is too strong. He could actually compete with the moving mountain general in terms of strength. Yet too terrifying. Although the moving mountain general has suppressed his cultivation, his strength has not decreased by much. What kind of body constitution does this kid have? It's too terrifying. Could it be that he has one of the legendary powerful body constitutions? I don't know. But his fist technique is too terrifying. That destructive aura makes me shudder. Discussions broke out one after another. It was obvious that everyone was shocked that Lin Xian was able to withstand so many blows from the mountain-moving general. Those from the Wang mansion were also shocked. Li Hui general also squinted his eyes and stared at the two figures in the field. The moving mountain general was even more shocked. Kid, I didn't expect you to be so strong that you can compete with me. But next, let's try out the superpower. As soon as he finished speaking, the moving mountain general's fist suddenly emitted a bright light. A golden light shot into the sky and pierced through the void. Previously, it was only the strength of his physical body. Now, it was not only the strength of his physical body, but also the power of his superpower. This terrifying golden fist shook the void and quickly blasted towards Lin Xian, making a violent trembling sound. The golden light made the hundreds of thousands of people unable to open their eyes. Lin Xian also shouted coldly. On his palm, not only was there a destructive aura like a black dragon, but there was also a layer of blue frost covering it. It froze the void and met the golden fist head-on. In the sky, the intense collision was like the sound of thunder shaking the entire sky. The two forces were like tides, constantly colliding with each other. Fortunately, the Wang Mansion's martial arts practice field was a place that was specially used for battles. It could withstand a battle between almighties. Otherwise, the attack alone was more than enough to shatter everything here into pieces. Bus. After the punch, the moving mountain general's bell-like eyes shone brightly, forming rays of golden light. They were like balls of golden flames burning. Those sharp eyes made people unable to look directly at them. One could imagine how terrifying the moving mountain general was. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the moving mountain general's fist loosened and turned into a palm, pressing down from the sky. Mountains began to appear in his palm. This scene was too terrifying. Those mountains appeared in the void and were being dragged by the moving mountain general, pressing down rapidly. The sky was covered in darkness. Mountains stood tall and majestic, and there were even birds and beasts on top of them. It was as if they were real. Chapter 1987. What kind of superpower is that? Many people exclaimed. Someone screamed, "Mountain palm! It's the mountain palm!" The mountain palm was a terrifying palm technique. When the palm was thrown out, it was as though a real mountain had appeared in the sky. It was so oppressive that the crowd found it hard to breathe. The palm was too terrifying. The mountains in the sky were earth-shattering. In an instant, Lin Xian was enveloped. Whoosh! Lin Xian looked solemn. He took a deep breath and the great dragon sword soul in his body quickly rotated. Then, mysterious sword runes appeared under his feet and quickly spread out in all directions. The entire martial arts practice field formed a mysterious sword array. Then, streaks of blood-red sword chi formed in the sword array and quickly slashed towards the sky. It was as though it could destroy everything. The blood-red sword chi was vast and mighty. It was like a river of blood, carrying with it a murderous aura. Clang, 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 clang. The blood-red sword chi rushed out and collided with the mountains in the sky. The terrifying sound tore through the void, causing more than 200,000 people to feel a piercing pain in their ears. Many people even fainted on the spot. Both of their superpowers were too terrifying. Whether it was the mountain palm or the demon-slaying sword, they were both extremely terrifying superpowers. The moment they appeared, the weather changed. Buzz! The void trembled. A snow-covered mountain that was thousands of feet tall was being dragged by the mountain general. It seemed as though it was cutting through time and space as it quickly pressed down. Boom! Behind Lin Xian, a huge blood-red sword chi formed into a blood-red dragon that was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. The terrifying dragon claws grabbed the void and met the attack. Crack, crack, crack. The dragon claws cracked the mountain. However, the huge rocks on top of it also shattered the sword chi dragon claws. This intense battle left the 200,000 over martial artists extremely shocked. Even the people from the Wang mansion were wide-eyed. They could not believe that a young man could fight against the mountain-moving general for so long. Kid, you're amazing. Take my last move. If you can take it, I'll let you into the Wang mansion. With that, the mountain-moving general kept waving his palms. Suddenly, 13 huge mountain peaks appeared in the sky, one after another, as if they were demonic peaks that reached the heavens. They filled the void. Immediately, the entire sky darkened. It was as if the 13 mountains in the sky would descend at any moment. A vast aura that could crush the heavens and earth quickly spread out in all directions. That aura was simply too sharp. It could definitely suppress everything in the world. Lin Xian's expression was extremely solemn as well, because the 13,000-meter-tall mountains posed a huge threat to him. Therefore, in the next moment he roared. The demon-slaying sword formation under his feet quickly intertwined and formed 9 gigantic black tortoises that soared into the sky. Divine tortoise-carrying mountains. 9 huge black tortoises, completely condensed from sword chi and full of spiritual power, rushed into the sky like real divine beasts. They let out loud and clear roars. Then the 9 divine turtles lifted the 13 demonic mountains in the sky. Boom, boom. The sound of violent collisions rang out, and every one of them made people's hearts jump. He actually wanted to completely hold back the 13 huge mountains? Everyone was shocked by this scene. Because the best way to resist this move was to dodge quickly or find a weak point and attack with all his might. But now, Lin Xian wanted to forcefully hold back the 13 huge mountains. This was definitely the most difficult and unrewarding method. The mountain-moving general was also stunned. Then he shook his head. Impossible. You can't possibly hold back my 13 mountains. He did not believe that Lin Xian could hold back his 13 mountains. However, in the next moment he was stunned. Because in the sky, the 9 huge black tortoises were roaring crazily. Their bodies were shining brightly. In the end, they actually managed to hold back the 13 mountains in the sky. Otherwise, they would have dragged the 13 mountains into the sky and disappeared into the void. What? He really did it? What kind of superpower is that? It's too scary. He can actually resist the mountain-moving general's mountain palm? That kid really did it? The mountain-moving general's eyes flickered. Then he retracted his aura. He had said that the 13 mountains would be his last move. If his opponent could withstand it, then he would not attack again. Kid, you're very strong. You've exceeded my expectations. The mountain-moving general looked at Lin Xian and said in a low voice. I will keep my promise and recruit you into Valurium Manor. The 200,000 cultivators were in an uproar when they heard this. Then they all looked at Lin Xian with burning eyes. Entering the Valurium Palace was something they'd always dreamed of. It was also the reason for their visit. However, some of them had been here for several years and still hadn't entered. Yet, a young man had successfully entered Valurium Manor on the first day. Such heaven-defying speed made everyone envious. But there was nothing they could do. They had seen with their own eyes how powerful the young man was. He was able to fight the mountain-moving general to a standstill even with his cultivation suppressed. Even if someone like him didn't enter now, he would be able to do so the next time. Therefore they could only be envious. By Qianqi. The mountain-moving general shouted coldly. This subordinate is here. At this moment, a middle-aged man in white robes stepped forward. He was very respectful. Arrange for this child to be sent to your Golden Sword Peak. Yes. The middle-aged man in white robes quickly responded. Then he looked at Lin Xian. From now on, you are a member of Valurium Manor's Golden Sword Peak. Golden Sword Peak? What's that? Lin Xian was very confused. He didn't know much about Valurium Manor. Valurium Manor isn't just a simple manor. It also governs an endless territory. Under Valurium Manor there are 5 major branches. Golden Sword Peak is one of them. Those who pass the selection will be randomly assigned to one of the 5 branches. You will follow me to Golden Sword Peak. So that's how it is. Lin Xian nodded to show that he understood. Then he said, then I'll have to trouble you, senior? Although Lin Xian's performance during the battle with Moving Mountain was extremely domineering and looked down on the world, Lin Xian's strength was still not enough. But now he didn't seem arrogant at all. The middle-aged man in white robes breathed a sigh of relief when he saw his amiable attitude. If Lin Xian had been an unruly person, it would have been very difficult for them to get along. But now Lin Xian was so amiable. The middle-aged man in white robes was very happy. All right, child. Follow him to Golden Sword Peak. The mountain-moving general said. Then he looked at the middle-aged man in white robes. Tell your peak lord to take good care of this child. Chapter 1988. Of course not. Our Golden Sword Peak will do our best to nurture such a genius. The middle-aged man in white robes smiled. There were some other young cultivators in the distance. They had also successfully joined the Valurium Palace. They were envious when they heard this. Needless to say, Lin Xian would be greatly nurtured after joining the Golden Sword Peak. That was why they were envious. Lin Xian, on the other hand, was very calm because his target wasn't here. Joining the Valurium Palace was only his first step. His real goal was to enter the Tai dynasty's core. From there, he could obtain information about the nest of 10,000 dragons. All right, you can come with me. The middle-aged man in white robes called out to Lin Xian. They then walked into the distance. Soon Lin Xian and the other young cultivators gathered together. They were all geniuses who were about to go to the Golden Sword Peak. Boom boom boom. The middle-aged man in white robes moved his hands, forming mysterious runes in the air. Then the void was torn apart. A shining golden door appeared in the air. Lin Xian knew that this was a portal that could be used for spatial teleportation. However, opening it required a huge amount of resources. Even Lin Xian and the Crimson Divine Dragon couldn't open it. One could imagine how vast the resources of the Valurium Palace were. Seeing that the portal was fully open, the middle-aged man in white robes waved his hand and stepped in. Then the other geniuses followed suit. Lin Xian took a deep breath and entered the golden portal as well. Boom boom boom. Time and space shifted. When Lin Xian's vision regained clarity, he discovered that he was still in a mountain range. There were mountains and rivers all around him. The surrounding spirit chi was so dense that it had even turned into liquid droplets that flowed under his feet. The spirit chi here was definitely hundreds of times stronger than the outside world. As expected of the Tai dynasty. Just a branch of the Valurium Palace alone had such a supreme spirit vein. Lin Xian didn't know how powerful the core and heart of the Tai dynasty was. The young cultivators around him were ecstatic and excited. They looked around curiously and then locked their eyes on the front. There were countless clouds and mist there. A majestic mountain could be vaguely seen in the clouds. It was very tall and it directly disappeared into the clouds. It was impossible to see where the top was. However, it was surrounded by countless rays of light. Halfway up the mountain, there were even rainbows gathered. It was like a paradise on earth. Let's go. Jin Jianfeng is right in front of us. The white-robed middle-aged man waved his hand and led Lin Xian and the others forward. The closer they got to the huge mountain range, the denser the spirit chi became. Even the multicolored light that filled the sky shone on Lin Xian and the others. Although the mountain range in front of them looked very close, there was still a long way to go if they really wanted to walk. Therefore, during this time, the white-robed middle-aged man said in a low voice, "Let me give you a general overview of Valurium Manor and Golden Sword Peak. The Tai dynasty has a total of 27 imperial mansions. Valurium Palace is one of them. There are 5 great peaks beneath Valurium Manor. Golden Sword Peak is one of them. Although Golden Sword Peak isn't the strongest, it isn't the weakest either. Golden Sword Peak has a large population. There are hundreds of thousands of cultivators, but only a few tens of thousands have been nurtured as core disciples. You are very lucky to be one of them. Our Peak Lord is the leader of Golden Sword Peak. Under him are 9 great elders, 72 envoys and 1,000 attendants. Every attendant has hundreds to thousands of cultivators under them. After you enter Golden Sword Peak, you will be randomly assigned to one of the 1,000 attendants. From today onwards you belong to Jin Jianfeng. You are also a member of Valurium Manor. However, while you enjoy the resources, you will also work for Valurium Manor. Of course, if you do well, you will be rewarded handsomely. You might even be accepted as a disciple by one of the 72 envoys. There are even those who are heaven-defying enough to be chosen by the 9 great elders. If that's the case, then you will have a meteoric rise. Everyone was very excited when they heard this. However, it was at this time that a young man asked, "Senior, what is your position in Golden Sword Peak?" They were very curious. Although the white-robed middle-aged man hadn't become a great expert yet, his aura was enough to make them feel terrified. There was no need to think. He must be one of the strongest 6-star kings. The white-robed middle-aged man didn't get angry when he heard the question. Instead, he said, "I am a disciple of the 7th elder, one of the 9 great elders. Of course, I am just a good-for-nothing disciple. My senior brothers are much stronger than I am." The 7th elder. Everyone was surprised to hear this. Lin Xian nodded slightly. It seemed that the 9 great elders were second only to the Peak Lord. The white-robed middle-aged man in front of them was the 7th elder's disciple. He must be very noble. The white-robed middle-aged man smiled. "You don't have to envy me. If you perform well, there is a very good chance that you will be accepted as a disciple by one of the 9 great elders." Everyone clenched their fists when they heard this. They swore that they would do their best to perform well and strive to become a disciple of one of the elders. Lin Xian was much calmer. Becoming a disciple of an elder was not his goal. His goal was to enter the core of the Tai dynasty. Of course, this matter had to be done step by step. Gradually, they approached the huge mountain range in front of them. Soon, an extremely powerful spiritual energy rushed towards them. As for the crowd, they slowly descended. Lin Xian followed the white-robed middle-aged man and the others and landed together. However, at this time he felt his heart palpitate. This was because he suddenly realized that there were 7 bright lights behind the mountain range. They connected to form a huge circle of light, flashing there. The 7 lights were very blurry, but they emitted a power that made one's heart tremble. Even a great expert would tremble in front of such power. Whoosh! Lin Xian took a deep breath as he resisted the pressure from the 7 beams of light. When he landed on the ground, he frowned and asked, "Senior, when I landed just now, I saw 7 rays of light in the distance. What is that?" "You saw it?" The white-robed middle-aged man was surprised. He then looked at Lin Xian carefully and said, "That is the depths of the Valurium Palace. It is the core of the Valurium Palace. Ordinary people can't even get close to it. Even I am not qualified. I am afraid that other than the 5 Peak Lords and the Elders, no one else is qualified to enter the core of the Valurium Palace." Chapter 1989. At the thought of this, Lin Xian clenched his fists. Power, he needed great power. Only then could he establish a foothold here. Although he was very strong now, he could compete with mighty figures. However, it was still not enough. Ordinary mighty figures were only 7-star kings. Above that, there were 8-star kings, 9-star kings, and legendary invincible kings. He still had a long way to go. Finally, they landed on the huge mountain range in front of them. The young geniuses around them exclaimed. Lin Xian was also extremely surprised because the scene was too spectacular. The mountain peak in front of them was tens of thousands of feet tall, like a giant sword that was inserted into the ground. It towered into the clouds and one could not see the bottom at a glance. It was surrounded by a sea of clouds, and there were spirit springs everywhere. There were even cranes flying around. That abundant aura made the pores on one's body open. Cultivating here, even an ordinary person would be far better than cultivating in the outside world. Lin Xian exclaimed in his heart. That was the benefit of having a heaven and earth spirit vein. The mountain range was very vast and huge, so Lin Xian and the others flew for a while before they saw the palaces and pavilions on the mountain peak. They were scattered in groups of 3 to 5 like stars in the sky, dotting the mountain range. And in the depths of the mountain range there was a golden palace. It was golden and dazzling, like an immortal palace, towering in the clouds. That's the main palace of the Golden Sword Peak. It's also where they are going now. Follow me. Next, I'll bring you to the main palace to meet the elders. Whether you can be accepted as a disciple the first time will depend on your luck. Of course, even if you don't succeed the first time, there will be chances in the future. So you must perform well. Yes. Everyone cheered loudly, extremely excited. In the next moment, everyone flew into the sky and Lin Xian followed. The outside of the palace shone with golden light, and the inside of the palace was even more dazzling and majestic. The group stood inside as if they were standing in the sea and the starry sky. The entire palace was huge, no less than a huge city. You guys wait here for a while. The elders' envoys will be here soon. The white-robed middle-aged man said. After that, Lin Xian and the others waited quietly in the hall. Many of them were so excited that they were whispering to each other. Not long after, Lin Xian suddenly frowned and turned to look outside the hall. At this moment, the white-robed middle-aged man also looked out of the hall and said, "Everyone be quiet. The elders and emissaries are here." In the next moment, Lin Xian and the others looked outside. Sure enough, they saw spiritual energy fluctuations in the sky. Light flashed and then figures appeared one after another. Among these people, some were riding on red-crowned cranes, some were riding on clouds, and some were walking in the air. They were using all kinds of methods as if they were immortals. Woohoo! Their speed was very fast. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of the main hall. Then with a flash, those figures arrived in the main hall. At this time, the white-robed middle-aged man bowed respectfully to the various elders and emissaries. Behind him, Lin Xian and the other young geniuses also quickly bowed. Lin Xian knew that these should be the elders. However, there were not many of them. Only 4 of them came. There were also some others. They should be the emissaries of the 72 emissaries. In total, there were more than 10 of them. These people were extremely powerful. Among them there were a few elders. Their eyes flickered with a sharp aura. Their auras had also reached the almighty level. Among them, the weakest was a 6-star king at the great perfection level. They were only 1 step away from the almighty level. The powerful ones were unfathomable. Because they were all almighties, the difference in strength was very obvious. Obviously, these almighties were not ordinary almighties. They were very powerful. As soon as these people entered the main hall, they began to size up Lin Xian and the others. The white-robed middle-aged man stood respectfully at the side, while Lin Xian and the other young warriors stood in front. There were only about 20 of them in total. At this moment, they were enveloped by the gazes of those almighties, and they felt extremely pressured. Lin Xian was fine because it was not his first time dealing with almighties. Therefore, he was still able to resist the pressure of such almighties. However, the other young martial artists were unable to resist. Fortunately, these almighties were only sizing them up and did not exert any special pressure on them. Otherwise, these people would not be able to withstand it. Buzz. At this moment, the sound of air being torn apart suddenly came from outside the hall. Then a huge golden light sword in the sky quickly rushed over. The light sword flickered with an incomparable golden light, illuminating the entire sky. In an instant, the sword light arrived in front of the main hall. In the next moment, it disappeared. In the main hall there were 2 more figures. Lin Xian and the others turned their heads and saw a man and a woman. The man was wearing a black robe and looked extraordinary. As for the women, they were all wearing long purple dresses and had beautiful appearances. Both of them looked to be about 30 years old, but that was not their real age. As for their auras, they had become even more powerful. They had already reached the almighty level. It seemed that their auras were even more powerful than those of these elders. They are also elders? Lin Xian was slightly surprised. The auras of these 2 people were very powerful. Greetings, guardians. At this moment, the middle-aged man in the white robe bowed respectfully. The other elders in the main hall also nodded slightly. The envoys also bowed. No need to be so polite. The Peak Master is in seclusion and has no time to come out, so the two of us are here, the woman in the purple dress said coldly. At this moment, the man in the black robe also spoke, just do as you did before. Yes. The middle-aged man in the white robe bowed slightly, and the envoys of the elders in front also invited the two guardians in. Lin Xian and the others were puzzled, but at this moment, the middle-aged man in the white robe sent a voice transmission. The two guardians had a very special status, second only to the hall master, and even higher than the 9 elders. However, they usually did not care about the secular world, so they did not expect to come this time. The two of them sat on all the elders' seats and then closed their eyes slightly. The elders were also sizing up Lin Xian and the others, but did not say anything. However, these elders did not come alone, and they brought some young warriors with them. It seemed that they were about the same age as Lin Xian and the others. These people also looked around and they could not stop looking at Lin Xian and the others. Then, the corners of their mouths curled into a cold smile. Among them, a skinny young man shook his head slightly. These people's aptitude is too ordinary. How did they pass the test? Could it be that there are no more outstanding people coming this time? Chapter 1990. Hearing this, the warriors around Lin Xian frowned. Some of them even snorted, showing their dissatisfaction. That was because they had gone through a lot of hardships to get here. However, they were being called ordinary. How could these geniuses accept this? Even Lin Xian frowned slightly. It seemed that the young men in front of him were the disciples of the elders. The auras of those people were strong, and their strength far surpassed the geniuses around him. Moreover, if they were accepted as disciples by the elders, their talent must not be bad. Therefore, those people looked down on these newcomers. Lin Xian was relatively calm in the face of such discussions. This was because he no longer needed to rely on other people's comments to boost his confidence. However, the young geniuses around him were indignant. Yes, there isn't even a late-stage 6-star king among these people. It seems that their cultivation is really weak. Not only that, but they are also relatively old. Although resources are also needed for cultivation in the future, talent is still the most important. Without talent, it would be a waste of resources no matter how much you give them. Indeed, there was a popular saying in the cultivation world, talent determined the upper limit. With the same amount of resources, the more talented one was, the faster one's cultivation would rise. If one's talent was ordinary, although they could rise quickly in the early stages with a huge amount of resources, their speed would slow down when they reached a certain level. They might even never be able to break through. This was the difference in talent. In the eyes of the elders and disciples, the people below were also ordinary. The elders and disciples still wanted to say something, but at this moment, the purple-robed woman sitting above suddenly opened her beautiful eyes. Immediately, she emitted a sharp aura. Then the elders and disciples all shut their mouths, not daring to speak. At this moment, the white-robed youth by Qianqi also stood up and bowed to the left and right guardians and the elders. Then he said, "Seniors, please allow me to introduce these people to you." These young warriors were all selected by the Moving Mountain General and the Leaving Fire General. They are the people who can enter the prince's mansion this time. The white-robed middle-aged man introduced them one by one. He recounted the performance of these people in the selection competition to the elders and seniors. He spoke very carefully and did not miss a single detail. The entire hall was silent. Only the white-clothed middle-aged man's words echoed in the hall. However, the elders remained silent. Even the protector's eyes were flickering. However, he had no intention of asking. This meant that they were not very interested. Although their disciples' words were stopped by the protector, the elders still agreed with their disciples' opinion. These people's talents were ordinary, and none of them were particularly outstanding. Therefore, he was not worthy of them taking him in as a disciple. Since no one was interested in these people, the purple-clothed woman opened her beautiful eyes again. Her cold voice rang out. "If that's the case, by Qianqi, take them down there to train. Don't worry. Although you won't have the chance this time, if you perform well in the future, you might still be able to catch the eye of these elders. If any of you can show great potential in the future, perhaps the right guardian and I will be tempted to take you in as disciples." She then waved her hand gently, indicating for Bai Qianqi to take the people away. Since the left protector had spoken, those elders also stood up and prepared to leave with their disciples. However, Bai Qianqi did not move. He said again, "Protector, there's one more person I haven't introduced." Hearing this, the purple-clothed woman was stunned and opened her beautiful eyes again. As for those elders, their expressions sunk. They seemed to be unwilling to do so. The left protector had already spoken, and they were all prepared to leave. However, Bai Qianqi still had someone to introduce. Wasn't he deliberately wasting their time? He had already seen these people. Their talents were ordinary, and none of them had reached the late-stage 6-star king realm. In other words, their potential was not particularly great. Thus, whether or not he could become a mighty figure was still a difficult problem. Therefore, they would not accept such people. Therefore, they were not interested in the people Bai Qianqi was going to introduce next. However, Bai Qianqi walked up to Lin Xian and said respectfully again, "The last person I want to introduce is him." Hearing this, the elders, envoys, and even the left protector all turned to look at Lin Xian. Immediately, the pressure on Lin Xian increased, but he still looked calm. Not bad. He's able to face so many people without batting an eyelid. He's really good. However, his cultivation is too weak. He's only an early-stage 6-star king. I'm not interested in such a person. An elder shook his head slightly. The eyes of the others also flickered. It was obvious that they had seen through Lin Xian's cultivation with a single glance, and their interest was immediately dampened. The disciples behind them were about the same age as Lin Xian, but their cultivation had already reached the late-stage 6-star king realm. Although it was only the difference between the early stage and late stage, it was impossible to break through without more than 10 years, even if one was a genius. The older one was, the higher the cultivation, the better the talent. Lin Xian's age and cultivation might be a genius in other places, but in the eyes of these elders, they did not think highly of him. At this moment, a short and fat elder in a red robe also spoke. "Bai Qianqi, your eyesight is getting worse and worse. What kind of disciple does old seventh teach?" This red-robed elder was the 8th elder. Bai Qianqi's master was the 7th elder, and the two of them were not on good terms. Therefore, when he saw Bai Qianqi mention an early-stage 6-star king, the 8th elder sneered. Bai Qianqi also snorted in his heart. He did not have a good impression of the 8th elder. However, the other party was an elder, and he did not dare to openly contradict him. Because if he did, he would be punished by Jin Jianfeng. However, the other party's arrogant attitude really made him unhappy. Therefore, he planned to use Lin Xian to contradict the other party. Since the other party looked down on Lin Xian, he wanted to see what the 8th elder's expression would be when he mentioned Lin Xian's battle achievements. At this moment, the purple-robed woman also spoke. "Oh, there's one more person you haven't introduced? You left him for last. Could it be that there's something special about this kid?" As a protector, the purple-robed woman was more patient. Therefore, she asked in a deep voice. "To be honest, protector, this little brother is really a little special. Moreover, I believe that with this little brother's talent, ordinary elders are really not qualified to take him as a disciple." Chapter 1991. The 8th elder snorted when he saw Bai Qianqi's gaze. Anger burned in his eyes. How dare he say that he didn't have the right to take this kid as a disciple? What a joke. He was one of the 9 great elders. Although he was ranked 8th, he was still an elder. Moreover, he had reached the level of a great expert. That was a terrifying existence. Therefore, the 8th elder said darkly, "What kind of genius is he that even elders like us don't have the right to take him in? Bai Qianqi, I can see that your eyesight has deteriorated, but your ability to talk big has improved a lot. It seems that old 7th really knows how to take in disciples." Bai Qianqi gnashed his teeth in anger when he heard the 8th elder mocking him again. However, he was only a small disciple. He didn't dare oppose an elder. Therefore, he could only cup a fist salute and look at the purple-clad woman. The other elders were surprised as well. They sized up Lin Xian once more, and when they discovered that he was really just an early-stage 6-star king realm youth, they immediately revealed doubtful looks. "Bai Qianqi, tell us what's so special about this kid. He's just an early 6-star king. You're not trying to fool us with him, are you?" The purple-clad woman was also very curious. She nodded slightly and said, "Tell us your reason, Bai Qianqi." "Yes." Bai Qianqi didn't dare delay when the purple-clad woman spoke. He hurriedly introduced, "This young genius is Lin Xian. He just arrived at Valurium Manor today and was chosen by the Mountain Razor General." "What? Just arrived at Valurium Manor? That's impossible." Many people in the Great Hall were in an uproar when they heard this. The elder's disciples especially cried out in surprise. "Bai Qianqi, don't lie. How can someone be chosen by the Mountain Razor General on the first day? That's right. Someone who just arrived on the first day doesn't even have the right to participate in the selection. By Chenchi, you're obviously lying. Many shook their heads. The eighth elder's disciples sneered. I'm not lying. He didn't participate in the selection. This brother Lin provoked the Wolf of War on his first day here. After that, he started a great battle with the 4 gang leaders of Wolf of War and the 300 elites of Wolf of War. He single-handedly defeated 300 elites and 4 sect masters. There's actually such a thing. Hearing this, the envoys and elders were also moved. As for the disciples of the elders, they were all stunned. One by one, they opened their eyes wide in disbelief. They had also heard of the Wolf of War. They didn't care about Wolf of War, including Wolf of War's gang leaders. However, if the 4 sect masters and the 300 elites attacked together, no matter how strong they were, they wouldn't be able to resist. After all, although they were geniuses, they were not almighties. Moreover, these people had never heard of any 6-star king who could contend against such a lineup. Therefore, their first reaction was disbelief. However, Bai Chenchi said loudly, I can't lie about this. All 200,000 people outside the mansion saw it. Moreover, the moving mountain general and the colored glass general also saw it with their own eyes. If the elders don't believe me, you can ask them. Originally, these elders and disciples didn't believe it at all. However, at this moment they saw Bai Chenchi's confident look. They were very confused. Could it be that this kid in front of them really had a way to contend against so many experts? This time, even the purple-clothed woman was interested. She said coldly, Bai Chenchi, continue? Yes. Bai Chenchi continued, this brother Lin attracted the attention of the moving mountain general after defeating the 4 sect masters and the 300 elites. Then, the moving mountain general suppressed his cultivation and used the strength of a 6-star king to fight this brother Lin in front of us. In the end, the two of them tied. What? He tied with the moving mountain general? Hearing this, those elders also cried out in surprise, their eyes wide open. They looked as if they had seen a ghost. At this moment, the black-clothed man who had his eyes closed suddenly opened his eyes. His sharp gaze pierced through the void. Is this true? The black-clothed man looked at Bai Chenchi and Lin Xian. Of course it is true. How would I dare to lie? And before I came, the mountain-moving great general specifically instructed me to introduce this little brother Lin to me. Moreover, he said that if the Golden Sword Peak didn't take good care of this little brother here, he would personally talk to the Peak Master. Whoosh! As soon as these words were said, even the elders gasped and felt their scalps go numb. To be honest, they didn't believe that this young man in front of them could tie with the moving mountain general. Although the mountain-moving great general had suppressed his cultivation, they knew how terrifying the mountain-moving great general was. These elders didn't have the confidence to suppress the moving mountain general, let alone an early 6-star king in front of them. However, from the looks of it, he actually did it. However, how did he do it? It was hard for them to imagine. However, among them, one of the blue-robed elders was the first to react. He said with a smile, why don't you let this kid join my sect? I'll train him well. As soon as these words were said, the others were shocked and then came to their senses. A black-robed elder said, Old Five, what do you mean? You're snatching him so soon? Didn't you look down on him before? I was dozing off and didn't notice. Only now did I realize that this kid actually has such talent. He's fated to be with me. Hearing the blue-robed elder's words, the corners of the young disciples' mouths twitched. Damn, how shameless can you be? Previously, these people didn't care about Lin Xian at all. However, after hearing about Lin Xian's miraculous battle results, they just started snatching him. This was too shameless. Of course, they didn't dare to say this out loud. They could only think about it in their hearts. However, while they didn't dare to say it, the other elders dared to say it. Among them, the black-robed elder said, Old Five, what you're doing is very shameless. I think this kid is fated to be with me. Third brother, you're snatching people too? Aren't all the spots for the disciples behind you full? Another elder spoke. This time it was the 4th elder. Then the others also expressed their willingness to accept Lin Xian as their disciple. The 8th elder's face was flushed red, and he was so angry that he gritted his teeth. This was because he was sneering and mocking Lin Xian previously, thinking that he didn't deserve to be his disciple. However, now it seemed that he didn't have the right to accept Lin Xian as his disciple. Whether it was the 5th elder, the 4th elder, or the 3rd elder, he couldn't compete with them. Chapter 1992. He wanted nothing more than to dig a hole in the ground and crawl into it. He didn't want to stand here and embarrass himself. At this time, the blue-robed elder smiled and said, "Little guy, you should join my sect. I recently took in a girl. She's about the same age as you and she's very pretty. You could say that she's a national beauty. If you can join my sect, you might be able to have a wonderful relationship with this little girl." Damn. This elder Jiang is too shameless. The other disciples almost spat out blood when they heard this. The other elders' mouths twitched as well. The blue-robed elder was all smiles. If Lin Xian was really as amazing as the rumors said, then he was definitely a peerless genius. So what if he used a honey trap to lure him to his side then? It was just a female disciple. He'd be willing even if it was 2 or 3. The third elder gritted his teeth when he heard the blue-robed elder's words. He hadn't expected the elder to use a honey trap as well. However, he wasn't going to give up. In the next moment he spoke in a low voice. "Little child, you must be very strong to be able to contend against the Mountain Razor General. I have a set of glazed Vajra fist here. It's a top fist technique that walks the path of strength and ferocity. It's very valuable. If you can become my disciple, I can teach you this glazed Vajra fist." What? The glazed Vajra fist? You're actually willing to take out such a treasure? The other elders exclaimed in surprise after hearing this. Yes, the glazed Vajra fist was no ordinary technique. It was one of the top fist techniques in Valurium Manor. It was extremely valuable. Apart from the core members of Valurium Manor, only the third elder and his disciple had the right to practice it. Now the third elder had taken out this technique to recruit Lin Xian. The other elders weren't willing to give up either. They all took out their own treasures to attract Lin Xian to their sect. "Alright, let's stop fighting. You're all over 1,000 years old. Why are you still so childish?" Right at this moment, the violet-clothed woman smiled. Hearing this, the elders in the hall stopped arguing. However, they still looked at Lin Xian with fiery gazes. At this moment, the 8th elder sneered. Then he turned his head slightly and gave the disciple behind him a look. The disciple behind him immediately came to a realization, causing a cold grin to appear on his face. In the next moment, the disciple stood up and bowed to the surroundings. The 2 protectors and the various elders. "I have a suggestion. I don't know what the seniors think. In any case, we have only heard of this little brother in front of us. We have never seen his strength. I think it would be better for me to fight against this little brother. Firstly, I will be able to help the elders verify the strength of this little brother. Furthermore, if this little brother is truly talented, it won't be too late for the elders to fight over him." At this point, he looked at Lin Xian with a smile and a trace of cold light in his eyes. Hearing this, the elders nodded slightly. Indeed, they had not seen Lin Xian's strength. What if what Bai Qianqi said was false? If Lin Xian was not a genius, then they would not only lose their treasures after paying a huge price, but they might also be ridiculed by others. Immediately, the elders nodded in agreement. The 2 protectors also looked at each other. Then the black-robed man said, "All right. However, since it's a sparring session, let's stop here." "Yes, sir." The 8th elder's disciple was overjoyed when he heard this. As for the 8th elder, he narrowed his eyes and revealed a cold smile. He did not believe that this kid in front of him had any outstanding talent. Therefore he decided to send out his disciple to test him. As long as his opponent was not strong, he would definitely be defeated. When that happened, he would like to see which elder would be willing to accept such a piece of trash. The 8th elder was very satisfied and confident with his disciple. That disciple had short red hair and a dignified appearance. He was extremely handsome and there was fire dancing in his eyes. He took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Lin Xian. He said loudly, "My name is Sun Yi and I'm the 8th elder's disciple. My cultivation has reached the peak 6-star king level. Since you can compete with the moving mountain general, it shouldn't be much of a problem for you to fight me, right?" He deliberately mentioned the moving mountain general so that Lin Xian would not reject him. This was because he was a peak 6-star king and he was very powerful. Below the almighty level, other than those at the peak 6-star king level, no one else was his match. Seeing this scene, the elders and young warriors all looked on with interest. They all stepped back and made an empty space. Bai Qianqi also looked calm because he had seen Lin Xian's strength with his own eyes. Therefore he was not worried. Therefore he retreated to the side of the crowd. Lin Xian looked at the handsome young man with short red hair in front of him. His eyes flickered and then he said in a deep voice, "Just you? Doesn't the 8th elder have another disciple? Why don't the two of you come at me together? This way your strength will be more balanced. What? Together? Hearing this, everyone was stunned. That was right. The eighth elder had two disciples. Apart from them there was another young man. However, no matter how they looked at it, Lin Xian's words were too arrogant. He wanted to challenge two peak 6-star almighties. He was simply courting death. The eighth elder snorted coldly, and his expression was extremely cold. The other party was actually so arrogant. He was really ignorant. Sun Yi even roared, "Kid, you're courting death." He did not expect that the other party would dare to look down on him. It was really unforgivable. My senior brother doesn't have to do anything. I can deal with you alone. 3 moves, I only need 3 moves to beat you to the ground. Originally, Sun Yi wanted to say 1 move. However, seeing how everyone praised Lin Xian so much, he was not very confident. Therefore he decided to use 3 moves to beat the other party down. He thought that 3 moves should be enough. Lin Xian laughed. 3 moves? You're too cowardly. He stretched out a finger and said loudly, 1 move. I only need 1 move to determine the winner. He was very calm as if he was not in a competition. Damn kid, you're too arrogant. I'll let you know what it means to keep a low profile. Sun Yi roared, and his expression became extremely ferocious. In the next moment, 2 balls of red flames appeared in his eyes. Soon, the flames on his body rose and formed a flame armor that covered his body. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.